0,4x, okay, så den er ikke særlig værd. Ja.
When I'm ready, and not before.
Side, and we're saying like, hey, law enforcement serves a vital fucking social function, and if you want to do any kind of defund the police, you need to build your parallel structures first, or else you're going to completely fuck up the society. But then we've had leftists for the better part of a fucking year telling us, no, don't worry about it, we'll just slash defund and we'll refund fucking social services, it'll all come out in the fucking wash. And then to fucking use that, and then it's like, this is what is fucking happening, but then we're vilifying fucking militias when they're the exact fucking product of like social insecurity as a result of attacking law enforcement in the first place. All of these things are connected.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear though, like
Wait,
you can say that
wait, Loner, it was Vosh next.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for confirming that had nothing to do with what I was talking about. I was just talking about why it's bad for these militia groups to go out there in response to protests. This has nothing to do with the rhetoric of defund the police or anything like that. And by the way, just to be clear, the language you're describing could literally it could literally be used to defend like brown shirts. You know that, right? A lot of the militant insurgency in Nazi Germany was instigated as a product of the burning of the Reichstag, the belief that communists were like destroying society and that they had to organize it. So we know that the militia groups are a product of social insecurity. That social insecurity is something that I spent a lot of time on my channel arguing against. But I deny the direct link between the defund the police narrative and that, because conservatives have been pushing that militancy and fear for decades. The defund the police thing is what, a couple of years old in the mainstream? The idea that we need like militant policing in order to protect our white suburbs from POC communities, that goes back centuries. So I don't think you can round this back to, look at these Twitter leftists, they didn't listen to me when I said defund the police was optically bad. We need to focus on what I was talking about, which is that what Kyle Rittenhouse did was wrong. It's bad. It doesn't improve society. It doesn't make the country safer.
Agreed.
Okay, but then what do you expect fucking people to do?
Connor, we have to wrap up, and there's other people who need to talk. So I want to throw it to Brant and then Loner.
I'm just going to make a quick side point, that's all. And that is that law enforcement or people that are your first responders on the phone that you're calling, the dispatcher, they instruct you implicitly if you've witnessed something. I don't think I've ever heard in the history, outside of maybe Danny Glover and Die Hard, being instructed by law enforcement to take the law into their own hands. Whether they know what happened or they didn't know what happened. And the evidence proves that most of the people had no idea what had happened. They had no idea whether it was self-defense or whether this guy was just waving his gun. They could not play judge, jury, and executioner. The mob makes multiple calls to get him, cranium that boy. That is things they did not have the jurisdiction to do. That essentially, with that, built a case from the moment they said that after Rosenbaum, a second case for self-defense. That you will never be instructed by law enforcement or anyone affiliated with that to take the law into your own hands. It is something that is a reactionary system, like we're talking about going to court and proving your innocence. Like I said, you will never be... What you're basically saying, Vaush, is that vigilantism is okay as long as you're in a big enough crowd and you're a vigilante with a big crowd, a mob doing things. That's basically what you're saying whenever you say that, because the same vigilante that you could say that was running around defending businesses was confronting vigilantes that were out burning businesses, looting, rioting, making threats, at gas stations, trying to harm people that were inside of gas stations. What you're saying kind of is nonsensical, and further down the line doesn't make any sense.
Okay, Vosh, you can. That was directed at Vosh, so I kind of have to give him a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I'm not saying we should have like large marauding militia gangs, only that if your goal is to defend property or like a part of your neighborhood, you need a large enough number of people to coordinate essentially like a militia shield wall. It can't be done as an individual. Huh?
Or cops? Or like the people that
wait,
we
hold
paid
on.
and normally do.
Yes, or cops. I don't know why you keep.
The fuck said it?
In this panel has argued that police should have no role in maintaining safety during protests. Nobody has said that. But if you are going to engage in militia action, you can't really do it effectively as an individual. At that point, you're just a lone shooter. You need to have the organization that confers to other people a sense of authority, control, discipline, and organization. This is literally like how police shield walls function. If you just do it as an individual, lone cops are in trouble.
So we have to, Loner, would you be okay if you use your time to speak during any statements?
Hell no.
No? Okay. Well, then Loner.
That's all right.
Okay,
yeah. So, Connor, just to answer your question, like why were the people out there with their guns defending their? Well, yeah, you can make that case that people were protesting at night, they were rioting, and that's probably neither of those are really a great idea. And the cops weren't there, so that can explain why there were communities trying to defend their property, but that doesn't explain why there was an inexperienced 17-year-old there. And I don't think that's because of defund the police. The reason that there was an inexperienced 17-year-old there, and that there will likely be more in the future, is because we now have this like ecosystem of like sycophants and like LARPing enablers who are just fawning over this kid who like there was probably at least 3 times in that event where Kyle could have easily lost his life. And there are people like who are just completely ignoring that, acting like the worst fucking role models on earth, Hake being one of them, and just saying that like, yeah, we're going to elevate this person and we're going to set the precedent that this is actually okay to do. And next time, there won't be 2 people dead, it'll be 20.
Okay, God damn it, Dylan, we're like on the verge of understanding each other. Why the fuck are we moving on? All we've done is fucking jerk each other off.
Well, because then we'd have to cancel one of the topics.
But, your show, bro. I love you.
Connor, this is what I'll do. I'll let you respond. And he also mentioned Hake, so I got to give Hake a chance to speak as well. So, Connor, Hake, then we'll figure out. Okay, you know what? We'll let it go and we'll just see what happens, okay? You know what? We'll make this a Democrat-run city for a little bit, okay? Connor, you go.
Sounds great. Thank you. So no, I know. Okay, so the point is, like, I feel like we're on the fucking verge of figuring this out here, where we can actually communicate to each other, probably for the first time in fucking 2 years. Okay, like that. Why do these people feel animated? You could say it's propaganda. You can say it's bullshit. You can say that it has nothing to do with reality, that they're just being propagandized and they're only watching Fox News. But to these motherfuckers, when you walk down the fucking street and you see stores getting robbed and stolen and burned and looted and all that kind of shit, it doesn't matter if it's fucking $500,000 or if it's $2 billion worth of fucking damage. It's happening within their community. Like, people do not understand systems from an individualistic perspective. So to be like, I have no idea why Kyle Rittenhouse felt the way that he fucking did, that's weird as shit. And on top of that, as like naturally empathetic people, like I have had no idea
Oh
how
my
you
god,
can't
oh
even put
my
yourself in the
goodness.
shoes of a motherfucker that basically sees bad
Jesus
shit going on in his
fucking
community
Christ.
and feels like he needs to do something in order to step up and stop it. Lumi, you seem fucking animated. I would love to hear your opinion on
It's not his
this.
community. You keep saying this is
Okay.
his community.
Dylan,
It
you've been
is
waiting for
community.
this shit all
Can I
fucking
speak
night.
on that,
Lumi,
actually?
can you please expand on why it's not his community?
My
I would love
understanding is
this.
he came in from an entirely different place, which is something that Antifa gets
Okay,
targeted
do you
for
know
all
where?
the
Okay,
time.
provide
hold on, no,
objective facts?
fuck this. We've been waiting for this all night. Do you know where Antioch, Illinois is?
1 hour from the border of.
No, it's 15 minutes. Do you know where Kenosha is? 15
No.
minutes away. Do you know where Kyle Rittenhouse worked?
Did he work there?
He worked in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Mother-
He
His dad
traveled there
lived-
every fucking day.
Okay, okay,
Can
that's
I add
fair. I'll
some family?
concede that.
Also,
But
also,
wait,
his dad lived there. His dad
wait,
lived there.
wait,
His entire family
stop.
lived there. Except for
Brant,
Taylor.
Brant.
Sorry.
There we go. Law and order. Okay, I'll let you be a Democrat for a second and see what happens. Okay. Lumi, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to hear what you said. What were you saying?
No, I just conceded my point.
Okay. So next was okay, Connie. Okay, I'll let you continue for a tiny bit more, but I gotta give it to Hake.
It's
Waited very patiently.
points. You want people to fight about what's going on. I'm giving you what you want, Dylan. Let me love you. So the fucking
Help
point of
me,
this
help you.
help me help you, brother. So the point of this is that, like, I understand, like, all the fucking lefties and liberals and progressives on this panel are super fucking reasonable and they're giving us all the rational fucking talking points, but at the same time, like, this is not what anybody has experienced for the past fucking year. We've heard that talking point. We've heard other talking points. He's a white supremacist, white nationalist, neo-Nazi who went down intentionally into Kenosha, Wisconsin in order to
Can you
kill
argue
fucking
with
black
us?
people.
And not.
No!
Wait,
Because
can
you
you
were,
not
like,
do the
saying we're
LCTR
so
fan?
reasonable,
Wait,
but then
there's
you're
nothing
like-
more. There's nothing more boring than somebody being. Well, I know that you all have made good points, but somewhere on Twitter, I know. Like, yeah, we know, obviously.
Gosh,
Just
you've
because
made
you-
these points in the
Which,
past.
wait,
You're
hold
just
on.
not making them
What,
known.
you've ascribed one point to me, and you misremembered it. What other point do you
didn't
have?
misremember
do
shit.
you want me to substantiate the white supremacy thing? Because I'm pretty sure all I said was that he was part of like a, or like after the Proud Boys stuff. Like the Proud Boys are a white supremacist org. I can't believe you would like hold water for them like that.
Hit on that he
How were they
should
white
submit to the
supremacists
mob.
and Afro-Cuban leaders.
Submit to the
thank you.
mob.
We don't
The best
How
part
about
that you
that?
have is like are you
How's
like
Nick
wait, hold
Fuentes
on
a
really
white
quickly.
supremacist?
Connor, if you want, you can find the debate that I had with Destiny a year ago and you can watch it and get angry responding to it, okay? But we're here now, live presently. I don't know why you keep trying to defer to this imagined collective of lefty perspectives.
Because I literally deal with it every fucking day, and I know
You're
for a
on this
fact-
panel. This
Okay,
panel.
and by the way, I'm pretty sure if we clip this out and stuck this out into your fucking fan base, y'all are gonna get fucking crucified, or they're gonna say, "Oh wow, that was the right optical choice to go in super fucking mellow on this shit." So no,
My
like,
fan
this
base is
not-
totally fine with what I'm
I
saying
mean,
right now.
Vosh has already posted a video
I-
on Cal right now saying all the same points. I've just got fucked on Twitter for doing the same thing. You were there, Connor.
I was there. Thank you for
Riley's
standing
had
up and
plenty
getting
of run-ins
sucked.
with
It's a little
left-wing
weird you
shitheads,
would just
so-
randomly accuse me of being duplicitous with my audience when all the positions that I'm holding right now are consistent with other streams and videos that I've put out over the past like couple of months.
Okay.
Like,
then
where's
then
this
it's
argument
really-
coming from?
Okay, then it's coming from a year of frustration with people saying that they don't have to fucking worry about how defund the police is going to be perceived optically. They don't have to worry about how BLM is going to be perceived optically. That it's just a little bit of rioting. That fucking, we can excuse it and this, that, the other way. Progressive and fucking centrist media like CNN and fucking MSNBC in the defense of fucking rioting. Literally the fucking meme standing out front of a burning fucking building and saying mostly peaceful.
It's like every BLM talking point that's ever been brought up in the past 18 months. We're on a panel
So
with other
how
people
do
right
you
now.
not understand it?
Understand what? You like dragging this out into every talking point ever associated with the subject? Understand what? What do I feel
okay.
like?
So actually, you agree. So okay. So just to clarify
Wait, no,
what
wait,
you're
wait,
saying
what
right
do
now,
I not
to
understand?
clarify
Wait,
what
please,
you're saying
please,
right now,
please, what do I
right
not
now
understand?
you have the centrist position from a year ago. That's your current position. Is the centrist position a year ago?
I don't know what centrist position. My position is my position. My positions change with time, but I think that most of what I'm saying now is consistent. I'm pretty sure that
Not
Then
with
this
what
is-
you said
then this is
before.
what I'm gonna
But
fucking
wait.
ask you. Okay.
That's
Okay.
fine.
And by the way,
Wait,
be
wait,
fu-
Connor. This will be
Well,
your
I just
last.
wanna know
What
what
means
you're
you're
wrong
not,
about.
Dylan?
Connor,
What do I not understand?
No,
Like,
wait,
he's-
both of you. Okay. So, Connor, you're gonna ask a last question, and Vosh is gonna respond, but then we have to move on to Hake, or I gotta cut out the last topic, which people prepare for these things, so I don't want to, take away their time and research. Okay.
Okay. So
Oh, I got
Vosh.
muted. Come out.
Okay, so Vosh, it's weird being talked to about being too fucking edgy or too fucking hyperbolic when it seems like you have a historical pattern when it comes to content of seeing things that happen, reacting to them live, having hyperbolic language within 24 to 48 hours, and then being forced to clarify. So right now, since your position is what my position was the day after the shooting, and it's taken you about a year to get here, or you had an enlightenment 1 month in, and you fucking switched your fucking position.
position?
Are you committing now to the next time that there's a controversial shooting that you're just going to withhold your fucking hyperbole until all the fucking facts are out?
What
Or are you going to do
position?
that fucking
Also, like,
Kyle
hold on,
Rittenhouse
really
fucking...
quickly. Wait, first of all, really quickly, just so you know, it's super weird and obsessive for you to be like, a year ago you had a debate. Your positions are different now. I was really ready to argue with that version of you that I had in my head.
I think what he's meaning
really,
in
wait,
less
hold on,
words
hold on,
is
hold on.
You're
First of all,
responsible for
first
part
of
of
all,
the hyperbole that fucking radicalizes motherfuckers. Are you
Wait.
Connor, wait.
Connor,
he
you
needs
gotta
to,
let
he needs to let me
Vosh.
finish. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta let him finish, and then we gotta move
He's-
on to Hake. Please.
He's
really
arguing
good.
with like multiple timelines of Vosh right now. Okay.
I'm arguing
here-
with your
Connor.
content.
Connor, I'm here now. You can argue
Oh.
with the positions that I have now. Can you please tell me what I've changed my mind on? Because you keep saying I don't understand this, I'm wrong about this.
Submit to the
What have I
mob.
changed my mind on?
Submit to
Okay,
the
so you think
mob.
law
Say
enforcement
it.
officers are trained to plant evidence
Say it.
on citizens?
What?
Okay, I'm just gonna start linking you your own content, bro. I'm just gonna start linking you.
Are
your own
you
content.
wait? Have you just like watched every video of ever? I think one
I've
time in a
watched
video. I
your
said,
videos.
yeah, wait. Okay, what does this have to do with the subject of the conversation we're
Because
currently
you are
having?
part of the hyperbole that
Oh my God.
radicalizes
He's showing
young people
political
into
bias.
stupid fucking perspectives.
So
That's
you
what
don't
I'm
actually
saying
have.
right
So wait. With regards to the subject we're discussing,
Mhm.
what do you think I'm wrong about or changed my mind? I don't think there's anything wrong with changing your mind, but like, let's say, what have I changed my mind on?
Okay, so what have you changed your mind on? I would say the fucking narrative in the wake of this shooting in particular, you're completely fucking different than you were fucking 24 to 48 hours ago.
What am
Or
I
after
wait,
the shooting, and then basically
so
24 to
over the
48
past
hours after the shooting.
year, my opinions have changed.
Are you
Possibly
see?
on what?
Okay.
Ja, men det er det, han,
you
det,
know
er det, han
what?
kritiserer dig for, bro.
You win this interaction. I'm literally just gonna
Dude!
start linking every single one of your fucking hyperbolic videos in the
Why?
group chat right now.
What?
Because
Okay.
you're partially
Holy
responsible
shit,
for
the
the fucking
obsession.
hyperbole.
Is
The
that-
obsession. I debate in Twitch politics. I'm on a panel 3 times a week. I debate you, Destiny, fucking RGR.
Why
Looney,
not talk with the
person
points
on this
I'm having
panel.
right now?
You weren't supposed to be debating with me,
Because
by the
you're
way.
fucking cute, Fosh, right now. You're cuddly. I want to give you a hug. Where's my firebrand
Connor.
anarchist that hates cops?
Exactly.
is
Where's
my
all the political
fucking
bias
bastard?
at? Where did
Connor,
it go, Vox?
I think I
Connor.
can feel like a
Wait,
middleman.
hold on,
for
wait,
you
wait,
guys
Okay,
want.
This is so threatening me.
okay.
You know what? I'm
Wait,
done.
stop. Okay.
Connor,
Yeah.
your Connor,
seconds.
legit. Your interactions with Destiny have made you stupider. You're arguing with a man-jump version of myself in your head. You gotta chill, okay?
No,
It's gonna
I'm
be
not.
okay. The fact that we have this whole conversation and you can't point to a single thing that I'm wrong on or have changed my mind about relative to this panel, but you're still seething over this, is indicative of actual like obsession. You need to calm down, okay?
Should
I
he
think you're a cool
submit
dude, but this
to
is
the
really
mob?
fucking weird.
Okay, Hake.
Okay.
Hake.
I believe that this whole thing is about getting rid of conservative, white, Christian males, especially if they're Trump supporters. This is America. You have the right to carry a gun anywhere,
that's fucking
pretty much anywhere
stupid.
you want. We need to unbrainwash people about guns, unlike what Eric Holder wanted to do.
Oh,
who was
really?
the Attorney General.
Insane.
If you're defending yourself or your home or your business, you are your own militia. I was at vigilantism. Kyle was not inexperienced in handling that rifle. He handled that rifle very well. Yes, Counterpoint made a good statement that maybe he shouldn't have gotten separated from the group. I don't know how that happened, but he's offering medical support to others. He's putting out fires, and because he has this boyish innocence and he's just doing the right thing, it enrages Rosenbaum to go after him. So I'm not sure that anything bad actually happened in Kenosha with regard to Kyle's interactions with these people. Helpful, well-disciplined young man. With that innocence, successfully defended himself against violent attackers who were enraged at the sight of a gun, enraged at the sight of a young man who was upstanding and defending his community. He had been cleaning up graffiti earlier in the day. The issue is we have a country that's like brainwashed into thinking that this BLM thing is a good thing, that the civil rights movement was valid, that blacks in America don't have rights. Give me a break. They're if anything, we treat them too well. We treat them in a way
Too
that's
well.
unjustly
Let it out.
letting them get away with murder, and it's wrong. And blacks are suffering, by the way, for that. Black on black crime is out of control, and then we're pretending that Kyle is a problem. It's pathetic, and it's a lie. Vosh is phony.
Anyone else want to drop the white supremacist
Well,
argument now? It's fine.
Bosch, that was
Great. I'm
directed
super
towards
happy
you,
we
so you
landed
can
on that.
respond to that.
Oh, that's okay. We can just move to closing arguments. Oh God.
Okay, then you can
Mine
start
will take
them.
2 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start them. All right. I love all people. I love white people, black people, Rittenhouse people, and non-Rittenhouse people. I love all people, and that's why I think we probably shouldn't do the militia shit, because I don't think it works that good. We should stop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to RGR now.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to weigh in more on the legal discussion, just because I've been seeing a lot of people think that they are legal experts on Twitter when they are not. But I was actually reasonably happy with the way that the legal discussion went over. I would have weighed in more on the moral part, but it was already pretty spicy. So yeah.
Lumiru.
I still just can't even follow Hake up.
Well,
Disappointed to see white supremacy alive and well and just vibing on the panel, you know. But that's my target here is how do we address this in our communities if we can't have these conversations and we always have to address these general leftists. I will acknowledge that I didn't speak a lot on this topic because I went in a different direction looking into it, so that's unfortunate. But thanks for the conversations outside of that.
Yep.
Oh.
Lonerbox.
Can I get one more? I'm sorry, I forgot one thing.
You can say it at the intro of the next topic.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. Lonerbox.
I feel like I could do a good job moderating counterpoints and Voss. So I think the steel man there was that of counterpoints was that what people were defending their property because people were being irresponsible and rioting and protesting at night because they heard hyperbolic stuff from creators like Voss, I guess, talking about the cops. So I don't know, that maybe hyperbole leads to people protesting in worse ways than they normally would, but that doesn't explain why Kyle was there. Kyle was there because there's a really disgusting culture of enabling culture going on around him, and he's not going to be a better person for this. He should not be on a court stand suffering from PTSD with the death of 2 people in his conscience. He should be in school with his fucking head down a toilet. But I don't know. I mean, I love Jesse Lee Peterson people, and I love fake dollar store Jesse Lee Peterson people.
Lecture fan.
What is this, closing statements or what?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't really have anything. We can just move on.
Okay. Hake.
There's no such thing as white supremacy. It's a fake boogeyman made up by people who feel sorry for criminals.
Yes.
the fuck?
Okay. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't really have anything. We can just move on.
Okay. Hake.
There's no such thing as white supremacy.
Right.
It's a fake boogeyman
Why?
made up by people who feel sorry for criminals and clamp down. It's like a mama spirit. You bully the person who's trying to be enforcing the law, who's innocent, and you feel sorry for the criminal.
Wait.
Okay. Connor.
All right. So I'm happy we all landed on the centrist perspective. I'm so fucking happy that my politics have prevailed. So what I've learned from this panel is that white supremacy is an overblown term that basically you mean it academically, not explicitly. So we mean it in the systemic racism way, in which color blindness might be slightly racist. In which conservatives seem to ignore disparate outcomes and don't seem to want to affect systemic issues. That's what we mean when we mean white supremacist. We don't mean to imply that people are purposefully wearing fucking hoods and being racist motherfuckers. That's great. I'm super happy to learn that. I've just been fighting a straw man for the better part of a year. Totally cool. I'm also happy to learn that the left, basically everybody on this panel, is happy to go back into their communities and say Kyle Rittenhouse was not an active shooter shooter. He was a dumb fuck LARPing 17-year-old, and he put himself in a self-defense situation, but he's going to be exonerated because ultimately, if you review the footage, it's a clear cut of self-defense. I'm very happy to hear that that's what you're going to go back to your audiences and say. I'm also happy to hear that you're going to go back to your audiences and you're going to say defund the police without creating parallel structures first is a toxic and fucking stupid way to advance social reform within the society. That basically what happens if you just chop up police budgets, throw them haphazardly into social institutions, and then just let the fucking cards land where they may, is going to be a counterproductive fucking mess that destroys social progress within that society. So I'm happy that that's going to be said in your fucking spaces as well. So you know, the good part of defund the police is diversifying roles. Cops are jacks of all trades and masters of none. So it's a great thing that what we're going to do is we're going to create field social workers. We're going to train cops in de-escalation techniques and crisis intervention training. We're actually going to give cops more money. Defund the police was a bait and switch. It's refund the police. We're going to give them more money so they're better cops on the fucking ground. That way we can improve society as a fucking whole. So I'm just super happy that I've been fighting fucking strawmen and shadows and Don Quixote fucking windmills for the better part of a fucking year. And everybody on this panel agrees with everything that I just fucking said. It's awesome. I'm happy to see so much progress made.
Brant?
Yeah, the facts of the matter of the case are, as a mother dropped her 17-year-old son off with people defending their businesses legally and lawfully.
She sounds like a dumb fuck.
He was there legally carrying a weapon on his persons. He was threatened by an 11 times convicted offender who made threats prior to and confronted him. He defended himself 3 times. We've seen now how corrupt the state can be. And what's really the thing that's tickling me pink over here is the fact that for 450 plus days, we've heard about how corrupt the state is and how the system needs to go down. But now all of a sudden we want to use the system when it benefits our political needs. And it's one of those things where I'm sitting here in the middle and like when I first started streaming on Twitch, I was full blown ANCAP. And as I've, tried my best to try to side with either side's usage of the First Amendment right, what I watched and experienced in Kenosha live, which I would say out of all of you, I was probably the only person to document, still have before, after the entire day's actions covered for 12 hours, covering all of the reporters, including Drew Hernandez, all the people that submitted their evidence, watching it, I didn't see any cases for First Amendment. I saw egregious, vile acts, threats, and I saw, like I said, 3 gentlemen make grave mistakes. And the third guy should be lucky that he's even alive to lie 3 times on the witness stand. I rest my case.
Okay. The last time we could talk about this topic is in the intro to the next topic. So if you have anything that's unresolved on the last topic you wanted to address, please use your intro time to do so. Now, the next topic is going to be, should people be woke, basically? Is it good to be woke? Now, this is a vague word, woke. Everybody has a different definition, so I would just give you a tip that it probably helps if you define what this word means to you, or if you have some dictionary definition you wanted to run off of. But I don't want, if this gets too much into a linguistics debate, I will try to steer it away from that a certain amount into this conversation. And we're going to start in the bottom left-hand corner this time with Lumi.
All right. So I actually listened to a whole Ben Shapiro podcast just trying to understand what the right is talking about when they talk about the term woke. Because panel, raise your hand if any of you unironically call yourself woke. Anyone?
I'm awake.
Same. Sometimes. I don't know anyone who does. It's just a derogatory term. It started in AAVE to describe a racial awareness of an awareness of racial prejudice, right? And then it got swept up by conservatives to mean, and I guess I should leave it more, and I'm excited to actually hear what people have to say. But what I was identifying is maybe there's some virtue signaling that they're acknowledging, some cringe uses of identity politics, but sometimes it is going after things like critical race theory, which again is very, very broadly defined by these groups. So that's one of my frustrations, is it just feels like a derogatory term that's so broad that the conversation doesn't, it feels difficult to have. Because I don't want to get caught in this area where I want to defend what I see as the term, which is being aware of racial prejudice and working to acknowledge that and working to systematically remove that. But then it becomes this goofy thing that's just a wide array of things. So is it good to be woke? Of course not, if you're taking the right-wing framing of it. But if you're taking the original framing, then obviously.
Next is going to be Riley.
Yeah, I think it'll depend on how you define it. Like what Lumi was saying, if you think that being woke is like, I don't know, like you think that all white people are inherently racist, or you think if you misgender someone accidentally, then the gender Gestapo will come for you in the middle of the night, then yeah, being woke will be bad to you. If you think that being woke means that like you think that the civil rights movement was good and that, yeah, like giving LGBT people rights is something we ought to advocate for, then I would say that is a good thing. I would also say that like most people would just qualify as woke at that point. It probably drops out as like a useful signifier. I'm not like super partial either way, so it'll just kind of depend on what the panel agrees on.
Okay. By the way, when you type, please do mute your microphone. Loner box.
Sorry.
Bosh. Yeah, that's a great point, man. I wish everyone could hear it.
Thank you. So yeah, the term woke, I know it's derivative of AAVE. I don't know what its origins were, like how ironic its origins were, but I agree with Lumi. I don't know anyone who self-identifies as woke explicitly these days. I think that, unfortunately, as with a lot of broad social terms, the right benefits from the ubiquitization of terminology to the point where any one term could refer to a million positive things and some negative. So, for example, when we say, like, woke, what do I like about being woke? Well, I like being progressive, I like being pro-gay marriage, I like being anti-racial discrimination, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But, like, when some people say woke, what they mean is, like, having purple hair and sneering at people who don't instantly assume that they're them. Have I ever met a person like that? No, not once in my life, but I'm sure there's at least one out there, and if I say that I'm not against being woke, then that's who I'll get lumped in with. So I think it's important to be specific with the language. What are we actually against? What are we actually in favor of? And can we make a good argument for either?
I'm going to throw it now over to Lonerbox, then Lecture Fan, then Hake, in that order.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it started with AAVE, then it kind of got extended to being more like just whether or not you're conscious of social injustices. So yeah, I think this first time I heard it was like a really odd place. I can't remember how, but it was in reference to like just after the 2008 crash, and it was talking to like some of the families who lost their homes, and they were surveyed on who they blamed, and the fact that like very few of them actually blamed like the predatory banks and the financial system and all that. They actually blamed themselves. And I think the article said that they weren't like woke to the fact that this was to do with like systemic injustice and the mistreatment of poor people by the system. So I thought that was quite interesting. It didn't actually have to do with identity politics at all. But yeah, it depends on who you ask. If you ask someone who understands the definition, then yeah, being woke is probably quite good. If you ask someone like Hake what being woke means, it's probably good too.
Okay, throwing it over to Lecture Fan.
I love how we come on these panels and all of a sudden all of the leftists are no longer agreeing with what the radical left has been saying about Rittenhouse for the last year, and all of a sudden nobody's woke anymore, and it's like it's just a little bit ridiculous to hear these leftists come on and say, no, we're not woke, we don't identify as woke, oh, and we don't agree with those leftist viewpoints of Rittenhouse. It's preposterous. Woke, as a definition, is obviously just a radical left progressive view of the world. It's part of the American Marxist view of the world. It's
American Marxist.
One of the things that I find really interesting about being woke is it's so unsophisticated. And actually, Morgan Eisenwald had tweeted out recently about how it's basically impossible to actually be woke or radical left if you're actually well-traveled. being someone who's very well traveled around the world, I find it just so ridiculous to hear people talk about how, the United States has, racial injustice problems, and that's where we need to focus our fight against racial injustice. It's like, if you really cared about racial injustice, you would be focused on other countries around the world, and you would be talking about how great a job America has done in terms of creating racial equality under the law, and how much progress the United States has made in terms of racial equality. And we're a shining example of what a wonderful country can do, and how many positive things we can do in terms of equality under the law and all these awesome things. And it's like, it's just this it's a really disgusting view of the world. And everybody on here that just said they're not woke, they are woke. And it's convenient when you're on a panel like this to say you disavow what the left has been saying, and you disavow the woke.
Oh my
but,
goodness.
It's pretty clear it's disingenuous and
Oh,
false.
good luck. Good luck.
I just want to clarify, liberals, communists do not have real love. It just doesn't go together. Satan has a version of love and understanding that is a false imitation. He comes as the angel of light. And I think that's what woke is. That's what you saw with the people who said that they love me, they love everybody. We have like a false victimhood going on, and it's not good. People are saying I want to clarify for the boomers who are listening, and some of my audience who's listening, they probably don't know what AAVE is. I happened to see it in your replies, Dylan. That's African American Vernacular English. Someone said the phrase "stay woke" arose in the 1930s amongst the blacks there, talking about an awareness of social issues facing blacks, and it's alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. BLM guy DeRay, back in the first wave of the Black Lives Matter terror attacks on the country, he raised his fist, and on social media he had the phrase "stay woke," and that's where I became more familiar with this term. We're going backwards though. We're becoming more like South Africa, where it was supposed to be this rainbow nation, and we thought apartheid was so bad, but we've turned it and made things worse. And that's what happens when you let liberals run wild in the country, and let that
Not the damn liberals.
mama mindset of feeling sorry for the minorities or whatever, when things
Damn
are
liberals.
honestly more than fair, beyond fair. It's not good to protect misguided people from the truth. Wokeness is protecting people from honest people using their First Amendment, saying what they think. It's better to have it out in the open where people can speak their minds. And if you disagree, fine. But we need freedom of speech back in this country. And you see they call, I hate the term woke. It's like cringe-inducing no matter who's using it, honestly. So you have the mob, the lynch mob, I call them. Some people call them the woke mob, going after people's jobs when people should have their jobs and have the freedom of speech. Where's the spirit of the freedom of speech in this country? You should not want to be so mean, nasty, and vindictive, pretending that you love the oppressed minorities, such that you're gonna just violate the rights of an individual. The individual is the one who suffers. So it's the offense, and the truth is what can awaken the people who are the minorities and into what they're into. And that's what can awaken them to get them out of their miserable version of their life.
Okay, moving on over to Connor.
Yeah, I'm like hella woke. I'm not racist, and I'm a trans inclusionary radical misogynist. I don't hate trans folk because, they're trans. I hate them because they're women. So, yeah, like, being woke is based, actually.
Brent?
Yeah, everything woke pretty much turns to shit. I think
Another
it's just
one!
a socialist colloquialism. It's meant to lure people in to an overall feeling of inclusion. And it's shit because it's sarcastically used. Like you hear it just as often used oh yeah, she's woke, or oh yeah, they're woke. You know, it's
woke as
that's
fuck,
how it's
bro.
used. Of course, if you're considered woke, most of the time it's probably not being used positively.
Can I start?
Okay. Sure, Lumi, you can start.
All right, with lecture fan, this is such a common thing. Like, if you have problems with it in your community, you can't just offload those problems and be like, oh, well, there are worse problems in other places, so you can't deal with this problem here. That's absurd. Of course, we recognize there's progress, but to say that I can't talk about rape culture in America or the prevalence of domestic violence because there's more domestic violence somewhere else, it's just goofy, absurd, and it totally takes the point away. It's a red herring. And then I wanted to ask you, do you totally, Brant for Liberty, do you entirely reject the framing of woke as potentially being aware of systematic racism, or do you deny that it exists? Like, that's something I'm curious on.
Can you point at a law that's in the books right now
That's not systemic racism.
No, I mean, I'm well. What's your definition then? Let's set our goalposts in the ground. What?
Okay, so
your definition when you said you don't like it. That's what we said at the beginning. Like, hey, conservatives are always super vague when they denounce.
Well, I'm
wokeism,
trying to
and then all of
clarify
you
and find middle ground
vague.
in this argument so that I can even accurately rebuttal. Maybe my term and their term is off. We're trying to define.
All right, 5,000.
Can we define what? I'm still unclear on exactly what the conservatives on the panel mean woke is. Like, actually, hold on.
First off, I'm not a
Wait,
conservative
okay.
fully. I am a libertarian. I share values with conservatives economically, but I differ from them socially.
Of course you do, buddy. Now, quick question. Can we get a raise of hands for people who think that there's any meaningful difference? Raise your hand if you do not think that there is a difference between being woke and being progressive. Raise your hands if you see no difference between those categories.
Well, I think it just depends on whose framing you're taking, because it's so obvious the conservatives are taking like a really different framing.
Right, because what's apparent is that Hake and Lecture Fan, they aren't arguing against being, they're just arguing against being progressive. That's what's going on.
Right.
I don't see any difference.
This is what, you know, it used to be that like liberals, like everybody would call people liberals as an insult, you know, and that was in the 90s and early 2000s. You would call somebody a liberal, and then liberals were like, no, we don't want to be, we don't want to call people liberals, and then they wanted to be called progressives. It's just like they don't want to talk about global warming anymore. Then now they want to talk about climate change. The left just changes these words because the vast majority of the American people learn, like, okay, global warming, it's a little bit, you know, we're not all going to die. We're not all going to die from global warming. And so then it becomes progressive, and now it's woke, and now you guys want to run away from woke, even though you guys know exactly what it is, and you know you guys are all woke, and it's absolutely about shutting down free speech and shutting down anybody that disagrees with you. It's American Marxism. Mark Levin wrote an entire book about this. It's a strain of Marxism. And Lumi, I'm not saying that you can't talk about it. I'm not saying you can't talk about these issues. I'm just saying if you're spending all of your time talking about those issues, it shows you're pretty unsophisticated. You probably haven't traveled the world much, and you're not using your resources and your time wisely.
What issues do you care about? Wait, really quickly.
So you think that I shouldn't?
Lumi.
Wait, am I unsophisticated for fighting against?
Wait, can we stop? I was trying to moderate. So there's a few people who want to speak, so it's gonna go in the order of Vosh, Lumi, then Loner, because all three of them want to speak.
I just want to, like, LCTR fan, what issues do you care about? Because I'm pretty sure that you can make that argument against you, right? If you want lower taxes, like, well, hey, guess what? There are tons of other countries that have higher taxes than America. So if anything, you need to travel more and get some perspective. Like, what? I feel like America's middle in the pack in like a ton of social and economic issues. So I feel like no matter what you care about, you could use that argument against pretty much anyone, right? What's your thing? Give me a thing. What do you care about?
I care about individual liberty and individual freedom, and in fact, what the left has done in the United States,
the vast majority of countries around the world, you know that, right? Like, you should gain some perspective, because I'm pretty sure that in terms of individual freedom, we're in like the 95th percentile. Maybe you should go to Somalia or like Bangladesh or something and like really broaden your perspective on these issues before you open your mouth here, like the privileged weenie you are.
Are you alluding to like incarceration rates?
No, he's fucking memeing. It's a goddamn parallel. He's literally just saying that.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to like
complain about things in this country. You can complain about things that's in this country. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
As
I
we
would
should
say
be.
that
here's the difference.
free
Here's the
speech.
difference. So I don't go around like attacking the United States and spending all my time attacking the United States when it's the leader in something. Like that's why I'm saying is stupid. If the United States is a world leader in racial justice and you go around attacking
not a
it as
world
not
leader in
as being
racial
horrible on racial justice and racial equality, that's where you start to seem a little bit
We're
unsophisticated.
not a world leader in racial justice. We're about as much of a world leader on racial justice as we are on individual freedoms. In terms of a ton of metrics and individual freedom,
I
America's
thought you
really
just
high
said
up
we are
there.
a leader in that.
No.
So
We're
what
like
do you
really,
com-
really
do-
high up there. So.
Do you only complain about American issues that America's like at the bottom of the world on? Like, what issues are those?
No, I recognize America
don't.
for being one of the best in the history of mankind on racial equality and racial justice.
I mean,
and
what issues though? Do you,
and
do
I
you,
point
what
to
issues,
and
what American issues do you
point
complain
to the
about?
I point to the United States of America as an example of what other countries should do to try to achieve that good of racial equality. I don't spend my time attacking the United States when it's literally the example of what's good.
When you were complaining.
Okay, wait, stop.
Wait. No.
Wait, stop. I said, okay, I said, okay. Shouldn't need to take, don't apologize, just stop talking. Okay, so we're gonna go to Lumi, then Loner, in that order.
I mean, Vosh said it beautifully.
Okay.
Like, dang it, Vosh, taking my own offense.
Sorry, that's my bad.
No,
Just a little bit louder.
predictable lefties are.
Okay, then we'll move on to Loner then.
I mean, lights are fine. You were complaining about like Marxism and it's like its influence and the way that like progressivism over America. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you should do some like time traveling to Soviet Russia because Marxism was a much bigger problem there. Maybe even go to like China because America's not a world leader in fucking Marxism. So.
I agree. America's not a world leader in Marxism.
Then why are you complaining about it? You should have some perspective.
Not
We should remember that America is actually one of like probably the least Marxist countries on earth. Like it's one of the America is like the last country you're going to get a Marxist
And it's
revolution.
the least Marxist for a reason.
And here's the thing. If you would watch my stream, you would know that I criticize the Chinese Communist Party and the global Marxist left all the time.
Good, just as long as you don't complain about America, though.
Great.
Not a world leader in Marxism.
Yeah, we're not the global Marxist left. I can guarantee you, I'm not a Marxist, and we're
yet.
talking about.
We're getting there.
I don't know. Did you see Twitter a few months back?
Have you heard about critical race theory? Any day now.
No, but I mean, we're not like this isn't a conversation about we're talking about fucking like probably like largely social issues in the context of talking about
that would bleed into being woke. I think I would actually concede to the left that conservatives do view, because I do have a lot of conversations with conservatives literally every day, and we watch a lot of pertinent content that is adjacent to what we're talking about right now. A lot of it stems from school boards, parents going to school boards actually distributing anecdotes and evidence that substantiate that woke culture is being adopted, I guess is the best word I can say, adopted into mandatory. Now, I think everyone in here that's for... say again?
What woke culture? What thing? What
Like,
ideas?
The religious.
CRT. Examples. I'll give you an exact example.
Yep.
CRT. Yeah, they're
What is
specific. I've
CRT?
covered hundreds of hours of this. This isn't just even a single event. This isn't a single state.
CRT? Like what CRT? Like what idea?
Critical
Right.
race theory.
But what is
Okay,
that?
but-
And
That's just what it's called. What is it?
subjects
Oh,
adjacent
remember, it
to
doesn't exist. Oh, now CRT doesn't exist anymore, guys.
no.
Oh my gosh.
No,
there's no
we're
such
not
My
thing.
saying
idea-
critical
Okay,
race theory doesn't
wait,
exist.
stop. Okay, there's so many people talking at once. Okay, so Vosh was the one doing the line of questioning, so I'll allow him to continue with the line of questioning. Then we have Connor and Hake. Continue.
Just you subbed one like vague talking point out for another. Like, okay, well we have woke things. Okay, well the woke things are CRT, but CRT is also one of those vague terms that conservatives use to mean everything and anything. So like, what of the CRT are we talking about? What ideas are being propagated?
The idea that a person of a specific narrative should feel as though they are an oppressor, and that the other should feel as though they are a victim. And through very many examples that are adopted into a curriculum, some of them may be as simple as a singular assignment. There might even be a course that has multiple chapters. I've had freelance
idea of white
essays where
supremacy?
somebody had no. the idea why somebody should feel guilty for why they are, let's say, a white person. Those are specific. Yes, there are specific assignments people have, English teachers have given in this. I believe that one that I'm referencing is in Tennessee. You can look it up yourself. But a child was given an essay along with everyone else, and the one child spoke up about it. Also, there are multiple times where in Zoom classes, you have teachers experiencing or displaying bias to the point where they will badger children in the class that have separating ideas. I don't think this level of politics, and this is coming from libertarian, conservative, South right center. I don't know where that is in adjacent to you, but I think that that distributes a political bias that could set up the next generation, keeping people in a framework of mind that could cause rebellion and not acceptance to. And in the long run, that could give us more problems than it could solutions. Now, I would, let me finish. I would concede, along with all the other individualists in here, that if there were electives in schools that are purely elective, not within the framework of the day that we're paying for, if there were electives that are provided where people could be involved in an after-school program or something where if they wanted to participate in it, they could, having no bearance on their grade, I'm pretty sure a majority of the, I'm not going to speak for everyone, I'm not an absolutist here, but I'm going to say that there are a lot of people, if they're true individualists, they wouldn't care if it was voted through by their school board and it was something that was left on an elective rather than something that's tied to, let's say, your English class or a history class.
I just want to say, because you've only said one thing there that I take issue with, and it's the idea that children should feel guilty for their race. I don't think that happens that often. I think there are probably some instances that have been highly publicized.
Yeah.
But
Well, let me ask you this: do you condemn that? Do you condemn that?
You just said it did, you dumb
We
fuck.
all condemn that. Hands up if you condemn
Just on the
guilty
panel. Just
white
on.
people being considered
got it to
guilty for
agree.
being white.
Yeah, but
Just
why
on
can't
this
it-
panel.
Yeah, why would
Like,
you ban a whole ass thing just for that niche thing? Why
I'm
does
just
it
saying,
become a
you
discussion?
could open with that. You could have said, like, the woke thing that I disagree with is telling kids to feel guilty for being white. But instead, we had to run down these, like, 16 subfolders before arriving at that.
Well,
And
I wanted
feel
to summate at the same time. I was trying to summate at the same time. I figured I'd save the specifics for when we got into volley, and we could pick the anecdotes that we actually want to talk about. What exactly
it's just
do
that
I
you
think
said-
within that?
It's just that you said CRT, but I'm just then you said making white people feel guilty for being white. Which critical
I just
race
gave an
theorist,
example. I just
which
gave an
critical race
example.
theorist said that white people should feel guilty for being white, though?
I'm not even speaking about a theorist. I'm
Well, it's
talking
not an
about someone
example
who's
of critical race
entrusted to
theory, is
teach
it?
your kids that chooses to
Yeah.
inject
You
those things
fucking
into their
cats.
brain.
So it wasn't an
You were
example of critical
stupid.
race theory. It's got
When
nothing to do with critical race
Okay,
theory.
a greater thing I'm alluding to is the fact that you could use politics as a teacher to influence kids
Okay, but you see
politically
why
in
I get
direction.
frustrated when you start with CRT and then talk about someone being made to feel guilty for being. These have nothing to do with each other. If you're going to use a
the same
term like
thing.
woke or CRT or progressive, the problem is you guys have no fucking idea what you're talking
The,
about. Like, there's
the
no
level of
connection here.
pivot is like, I got to give it to y'all. A+ on pivoting. Like y'all are
No,
amazing
because
at it.
you're out here banning critical race theory that's being applied very broadly, and then you're talking about these very specific niche things.
I
we
think
agree
parents
with
are
you
upset
on.
that their kids are being forced to do these particular assignments in accordance to achieving a grade level or passing.
They're also
the
forced to
6
do
weeks.
math. What's your fucking point?
This is
What's your
what
point?
parents have an issue with. I think
Fuck parents.
most people
You
nowadays
fuck.
have progressed. But I mean, I would even say some of the staunchest conservatives have been forced through social, we'll just say, democracy. It's to the point where in the frame of individualism, as long as it's not interfering me and that trickles down to my household, my children, then I don't think you have a fight with conservatives on woke culture. It's when you're bringing mobs to our cities. It's whenever you are bringing radical people and putting them in positions, very sensitive positions of influence, like teachers and education, and then the school boards and city supervisors. When these things are happening like this, and you're just seeing it as a parent, and you're watching your parental purview basically being shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. That's what conservatives have a problem with woke culture.
Fucking hate
And I'll allow
conservatives. What the
any
fuck?
conservative here to correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I've seen, the overwhelming thing is, as long as it's not interceding in our lives, then it's not something that I don't even think I should be able to argue about it.
Okay, so does anyone want to specifically
fuck
respond
was
to that
that
before I
point?
move down the list again, which has Connor, Hake, and Riley on it?
I mean,
I would I was just gonna say real quick. When that was fantastic when Vosh asked Brant for some specific examples and he gave 2 of them. It was like a mic drop moment.
Can I follow up on that? Because I actually looked up
Sure.
the example from Tennessee, and it seems like the only curriculum that was contested were just books about general American history as it respects to slavery. It's not anything that's specifically about like making kids feel guilty. That's what the mom said in her complaint letter, but the books are just books about the history of slavery.
I know, but that doesn't mean that the teacher wouldn't adopt an assignment that would be adjacent to what the curriculum is.
The books are just about slavery.
But you're thinking that they're just teaching the book. You're not thinking that they're adding an extracurricular.
As a libertarian, the way you fix this is by banning critical race theory, or do you agree that's
not what
awful?
I'm saying? I would say stopping. I'm a full proponent of the free exchange of ideas, goods, and services. That includes the idea section. So I'm not for banning something entirely. As much as I may not agree with it, as much as I may not like to hear words that are said, as much as I may cringe, I don't believe in stopping that, because I believe the best ideas, not the most popular, I think the best ideas rise to the top.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm thinking.
We're doing what
after this, we got to go back to the list.
Doing. Like, do you have any actual evidence that they were doing what you're accusing them of? Because right now,
there is an African American mother who talks to, I believe it is Tennessee. I might be wrong. There are so many school boards I've covered, but she goes up there and she gives I could play the testimony for us if we say.
Okay. So you have so just to be clear, you have no evidence that the teacher was trying to make kids feel guilty for being white, other than one parent said that's what they were doing.
I am talking about the conservative response to the curriculum as it is.
To not the curriculum, to one complaint from one parent. Is that right? Is there any other evidence?
There are multiple.
Of that particular, in this case, in that case,
it is numerous.
What are they?
Not even dozens.
I would
take up the rest of your day. I mean, I've recorded every episode I've ever done, so I can get you some. I can get you many references.
It doesn't prove like this, if this is the primary example. It doesn't. This is your primary example. It doesn't.
That was one that we were talking about an example of woke culture. CRT is a one straw of hay in the hay house.
This is just teaching schools, and one parent complained about it.
It seems like no matter what I do, you're always going to go, well, what else? What else do you have? What else do you have? It seems like that's what we've started.
You give us one example. It was shit. Give us another one.
Well, that's your subjective take.
Stop. I said stop. Okay. We're going to go to Connor.
That's your subjective take.
This is kind of... fuck. We can sit here and we can argue about what CRT is or fucking isn't, or we could say, like, what are the problems that are currently facing American society is that we have two completely different narratives about what it's like to be American. Most conservatives, libertarians, right-wingers, or whatever think that it's pretty kick-ass to be American, that despite, like, some economic hardships and some, not having access to as much social mobility as we used to, America still kicks ass. Some people who are still American citizens, and we love them because they're American citizens, LGBTQ folk and black and brown folk in particular are saying, like, hey, some of this country kicks ass and some of this fucking sucks. And if you look at the history of the things that have sucked, then basically you can extrapolate it out onto the present of why things still suck for some of us in certain ways. So what we can do, which I'm counting on, is we can sit here and we can say, your problems aren't real. Fuck you, and stop trying to indoctrinate my kids into communism. And then we can say, on the advice, we can say, hey, we're just trying to teach you about the real world, and all of this fucking Marxist bullshit is a bunch of fucking alarmism. Or we can, like, talk past the points that we're here, where we're, like, bickering and fucking arguing about it. What do you want to teach kids?
Oh, the shit, it's accident X.
What do you want to teach kids about LGBTQ?
That's pretty powerful.
What do you want to teach? Do you want to teach them to be libertarian, where they just treat everybody as human beings? Or do you want to teach them to adopt it, like, wholeheartedly into them, that, like, non-binary folk, trans folk, and all that kind of stuff, against their, like, religious teachings, are people that are, like, worthy of, like, the love and respect and equality that some religions would prohibit them against. So are you trying to go liberal or libertarian, or are you trying to go authoritarian, where you're trying to completely change the culture? And I think that's like an important question to answer, because if it's like liberal or libertarian, awesome, let's fucking do it. If it's authoritarian and you're like, no, we need to fuck anti-theocracy, fuck religion, fuck these religious fucks, then obviously you're gonna have beef with conservatives because a decent chunk of them are religious.
I don't believe religion is inherently transphobic. I don't believe religion is inherently homophobic.
What about homophobic?
No, I don't think it has to be, because I know a lot of Christians that aren't homophobes.
Well,
wokeism is a religion.
It's easier to be. Like, I'm not saying it has to be, or that like religion like has to be the same thing over time. But can you see how like certain biblical verses could be used to justify homophobia or
Yeah, just like racism.
Okay. All right.
No such thing.
Which, like, I would argue against racism, even on a religious, like, I don't think you should be able to be religious and racist just because your religion is racist. I think the problem, like, if I were to say Christians can't exist because I'm gay or something, like, that would be fucked up to me. And I feel similarly about religion. Like, I'm going to treat these people poorly because I'm religious. I don't think that's fair. I just think it's unreasonable. And for you to consider like being anti-racist while still accepting religion to be like somehow you didn't say authoritarian, but you were saying it was like not libertarian. That feels unfortunate to me. Like it feels like really, it feels like do you have a really bad view on what religion, do you think religion has to
Have you ever been to a woke protest? Have you ever been to a woke protest and not been someone who identifies with the crowd? Have you ever been anywhere near that before? I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't. Have you?
Where are you going with this?
Where I'm going with this is the tolerance. I'm going on with tolerance here.
Wow, yeah. I feel like Lumi is scratching at a solution, which I think would be super cool. No, I don't think it has to be. And I do believe in like incremental societal change. So if the point, like if our education system was saying like, hey, LGBTQ folk are fucking real. You gotta honor their pronouns. You can't be fucking dicks to them just because they're gay or bi or non-binary or trans or whatever. If you have like different religious beliefs, you need to keep that shit at home. You need to treat everybody with love and respect the same way that everybody treats you with love and respect. I think that's like a perfectly fucking valid thing. And then on top of that, we're gonna learn about the fucked up history of how gay folk were treated in the past and how black and brown folk were treated in the past. And you're just gonna have to deal with the fact. If you want to argue about it politically with your family when you get home, awesome, you do you, but you got to keep it at home. And then if you want to talk about over time, like culturally saying like, hey, listen, here's these prescriptions in the Bible. So for instance, like I think within the past couple of years, there's been like a supposedly a historically corroborated interpretation that said that all of the biblical verses that were previously used for homosexuality are likely historically supported for pedophilia, and therefore a lot of religious-based like homophobia is actually not warranted from like a historical lens, and you just kind of want to chip away at the homophobia that might be within like certain religious communities. I think that's fucking awesome. What I don't like is where basically what you would say is like, nope, this is the right culture, fuck you, and if you don't like it, we're going to shove this down your fucking throat. And I think that's the way that a lot of conservatives feel. So I'll leave it there.
Well, Connor, to answer what you were saying earlier, you were talking about like, what do you want to like change in education and things like that. A really good example of something that happened here was that like in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher wanted history, for example, in primary and secondary school to be all about kings and battles and just like reverence for the elites, basically. And it was like that when I was a kid as well. More recently, they've started, like teachers started taking a bit more control. They've diversified, and now they'll teach things like the roles in the slave trade or like the Industrial Revolution, and actually like stories about like a lot more like working class and social history, and then even LGBT stuff from the 80s. So that would be like a really good example, I think, of just something being taken, like it's always going to be political, like a lot of these subjects. So that's just something, taking a subject and, I don't know, taking it from shit conservative pilled and making it into like awesome woke pilled. Yeah.
Okay,
so I think
so wait. Okay, Hake has been waiting very patiently, so I want to make sure he gets time to speak. I'll write down the people who have been trying to.
Parents who send their children to public or even private schools nowadays are taking a major risk on losing their children to blind brainwashing. And they're going to end up turning on the parents, hating them, and hating everybody, because this woke stuff and this CRT and
this woke CRT,
stuff, they've been pushing this blind brainwashing about imaginary racism
Yeah, stop brainwash, bro.
for decades. And generation after generation, it's gotten worse. You have like young college-educated teachers brainwashing their kids into supporting
Wow.
Black Lives Matter,
Oh,
defund the police. You see these posters,
sad.
all kinds of like communist posters in the classroom. The radical LGBT agenda pushed on little kids. And they're just so misguided. They're on TikTok coming out to their kids. It's wrong. America was not founded on this slavery and genocide stuff. Slavery wasn't one of the world's worst evils. We have Democrats today who are much worse than the Democrat slave owners of back then. They're killing babies in the womb. It's like out of control. We're going along, counterparts, going along with these delusions of these people is not showing that is being an a-hole.
Listen, that was a lot, but can you tell me when America stopped being racist specifically?
Racism never existed in the first place.
Hold on. What about racism?
Hold on. Can we pull that apart real quick? Okay. America.
Wait, one second. Wait. Pause. Let's pause the story.
Actually, it does work.
Can you just for the panel? Can people raise their hand if they believe racism has ever existed in America?
Against whites and everyone else.
Okay, so I just wanted to just okay.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, Connor.
Can you explain? Yeah, can you please explain that to me about like how America was never racist?
America was founded by the Anglos who came here, escaping the corrupt church and the corrupt king, and then they declared independence because the king was exploiting them in many different ways, and it was for them and their posterity. And there were slaves here. The slaves were not bought just because they were black. They were bought because they were for sale. That's
okay,
not
so
racist.
just out of curiosity, so
that's fine.
Their posterity. I've heard this in other groups.
It is actually fine.
I'm not saying that
if it's right.
But like I'm Irish. Like I'm 100% Irish. Now that I've been here and my people have been here for like a century and a half, is America also for my posterity, or am I still just serving like the Anglo hierarchy and really as Nick Fuentes would say, a cappuccino debt slave? To just be like an economic vehicle for fucking like Anglo supremacy.
Yes.
Like,
If you
what's
have
my role?
The spirit of the freedom of speech, and you have the spirit of America, of the Second Amendment, and loving the country, then you are, at heart, American. It's about what's right. And
I mean, that's better
if you'll notice, like by and large, the white males who are so hated, I suspect that it's partly that they're hated because they vote.
Hate us because they
They vote for Trump. They vote for people who love the country and they want to bring everybody together. They love everybody.
Okay,
they don't hate everybody. They're Christians, but they're standing in the way of this communism that is this idea of imaginary racism. They're using black people.
Can I just ask another question? Because I just want to be sure, because like I asked this fucking question whenever like a leftist used fascist, so I want to ask you this question since you use communist.
Mana.
Like, what is your definition of
offenses?
Liars.
Okay.
Yeah, people who are who play like they're nice. They play reasonable, much like Boss does. He plays like he's reasonable and he loves everybody, but really he's not for America. He doesn't want the Second Amendment. He doesn't want the freedom of
that shit. Are you kidding me? Even I know
that. Not for Kyle. And so useful idiots who are being used for destruction, they may not think that they're Marxists, but generation after generation, most of this panel has been brainwashed in some form or other to just subvert the country away from what's right. There's no such thing as...
How does that work? Do they lie because they're communists, or did they become communists because they lied?
Ooh, chicken and the egg argument.
I'll give you the rest of your life to try and figure out what that meant.
They lie because they're evil.
Oh, this is pretty
they have
stupid.
Anger and evil in their hearts. And when you have anger and evil in your heart, you try to be good, but it's a false imitation of it. And that's what this woke thing is. That's what the CRT thing is. That's what you see all these lady teachers who think that it's a good thing to come out to their kids. They think that they're being, some of them actually think that that's the right thing to do. It's a misguided thing. It's a false.
You didn't answer my question.
Well, and just out of curiosity, you were kind of saying that like
wait, one second. Right? Before Loner said he didn't answer his question. I saw Hake try to say something. Did you want to answer the question, or did you want to clarify something?
It's what was the question? It was a dumb. It seemed like a dumb question. It seemed
I can restate it if you want.
How do you know if it's a dumb question if you can't remember what it was?
He says, are communists evil because they lie, or do they lie because they're communists?
Didn't you say give him his whole life?
Basically, he's saying, are they liars? Therefore, they are communists. Like people who are liars are communists, or are communists inherently liars? Like which one?
Oh, I see. Yeah, communists are inherently liars because not all liars are communists, but all communists are liars.
Ooh.
Okay, but do you have a political do you have a political definition for communism?
You were just playing around.
You guys are trying to melt a stone right now. I guess my issue with like the whole woke thing is that like
it's kind of nice, but
conservatives are
it's
always
not
going to
what I
consider
need.
anything authoritarian if it's progressive, it goes against their values. They've been saying that about like teaching about gay people in sex ed for a long time now. I don't know how to best deliver that info in a way that people find that conservatives find agreeable. You know, there are places in our country, I can't believe it, but like the lost cause myth is still taught. The idea like, oh, the North started the war and it was about states' rights and blah blah. Like that's taught in whole districts, states even, where it's more common than not. So I feel like when it comes to whether or not we support, so we were talking about woke stuff. I don't know how the fuck we got here, but basically, I think that when it comes to like the delivery of these progressive ideas, we have to do so with respect to people's biases, not in the sense that we can never offend them, but we have to at least take into account what they're inclined against or towards. Otherwise, we're not going to be really effective at delivering those messages, you know?
That's why we find a common ground. We figure out what everybody's definition is of something, right? You keep saying, and I think this is kind of like a lefty fallback plan to make yourself look really cool, like you know what you're talking about. But really what that is, whenever you say, how did we get here? We're giving examples and asking questions. When people are asking, what is an example of this? Okay, now let's extrapolate on communism. That's how we got here, Vaush. Are you taking roofies while we're doing this or something? Like,
Wait, how did we get here? What the fuck just happened? Hold on. First of all, I'm just saying, one way or another. Second of all, we need to talk about definitions. But again, like for what you said earlier, like, okay, fine, I'll turn to you. Fine. What you said earlier was incredibly stupid. I'd let it go, but now I won't. Okay. What you started out with was, well, woke can be bad because CRT can be bad because one time I heard about this one person saying that people should feel guilty if they're white in school. Okay. That would be like a person saying, I hate America. And you're like, well, how? And you're like, okay, well,
I didn't say that I said it. I said,
Yes, che va lì così lo sai
They're like, I hate Los Angeles. You're like, okay, why do you hate Los Angeles? Then you're like, okay, well, I don't hate Los Angeles. I hate La Brea Boulevard. I think it's a really dumb street. It needs to be paved back. And then you nod. You're like, okay. So anyway, that's why I hate America. Like in a conversation about wokeness, it's irrelevant. Nobody here would agree that we should teach children that they should feel guilty if they're white. What we want to talk about is basic progressive ideas and how well we should advocate for them, how far we should go. But nobody defends that shit outside of some insanely insular circles online that hate me too.
Well, see, you're holding a position on that when you make that statement. Whenever I'm speaking here and I'm referencing this is my interaction with conservatives, this is an anecdote of something that they brought up. That is what they consider woke culture and something. And I've already given my position on the status that if a school board pushed it through and it was kept and held to an elective, I wouldn't have any qualms with it. I'm not super anti people that want to be their own way and have their own organizations. I'm not against that. I'm to the point for which anything is mandated on somebody or it becomes a part of a mandatory, let's say, or education.
What about mandatory sex ed? Is that like cool with you? Like teaching about like oh, some people can be gay and like, oh yeah, trans people are a thing. Like in 5th grade or whatever. I think that's when I got my sex ed. Do you think that's forced or do you think that's just an update to an existing?
I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't want sex from any circumstance taught to my kids. I want that to be something that I have a conversation. I want it to be held purely scientific. If you can find scientific infrastructure to implement and a school board pushes it through and it's accepted by the populace, it's none of my business. And given the circumstance I just gave, I would probably be a proponent for it.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay, Hake also has
Oh
a
my
statement
God.
on sex ed, I think. I didn't get to hear it.
Yeah, this sex ed stuff is a bad idea because you're just brainwashing people to accept wrong as right. And and it's planting ideas in kids' minds. It's destroying their lives because they get all caught up into an idea about themselves or other people. They think it's cool to be into this stuff when it's not good for you.
Amen, brother. Okay, we
Can
do actually
I-
have to. Well, no,
I have
just-
one question for Hake, if that's all right. One more question.
Okay,
It's
but I mean
relevant.
it's kind of hard to attack that one, but okay.
Oh no, it's about what you said earlier about there's never been any racism ever. I think you said that, right?
Right.
So yeah, I wanted to know, like, my granddad was born in 1917. He was a farmer, very all white. He's never seen a black person. He hated black people. He used to tell my mom that if she didn't go to bed early enough, then like a dark person would come and get her at night. I just wonder, was my granddad being racist or was he being woke?
Neither. That's neither racist nor woke. That is, if what you're
What is
saying,
that?
Hvordan
if
fuck
what
er
you're
det ikke
saying is true,
racistisk?
then he had a judgment against people based on either what he heard or some experience that
Yeah,
he
based
had.
on their
Judgment
race.
about race, right?
I'm sorry, I have to ask like one question.
What?
I'm trying to get in. I just have to ask one
Bro.
question. Hey, what is your definition of racism? What to you is racism? Does it exist?
No, it does not exist.
What is it then?
It is a judgment. Everybody judges.
But you just
And-
said my granddad was making a judgment.
Yeah, he was
Based
making
on
a
black
race.
people.
Yeah, that's the mechanism of racism is judging.
issue
Yeah,
is
based
that this
on-
imaginary
on
racism
race.
boogeyman. It is a judgment. The people crying racism are guilty of the same judgment that they think the people that they're accusing of racism are guilty of.
What
That's
if
why
you judge someone based
Wait,
on their
what?
race?
What's that?
What if you judge someone based on their race?
But that's at root.
That's not racism, is it?
No, because it's not the issue. The root issue is a judgment. If you're guilty, if you can't be, people who accuse others of racism think that they're not guilty of racism, but they're guilty of judgment, which is the very crime that they're accusing the other person of.
But what
It's okay. You're not answering my question, but it's fine.
Okay, så han mener, der er racism, men han nægter bare at bruge ord. Fair nok.
No,
Fair nok.
it's a false vice.
Fair nok, altså.
Well, that's settled. We'll move on to the next topic after some outros. Okay, we're gonna do it, starting it in the top left-hand corner with Brant.
Like I said, woke as it's referred to in the social colloquialism, because this has to be framed in which you are, I guess, adhering to the definition of your who would ever be the counterpoint, being conservatives, right? So in their judgment, I would say that woke culture, I happen to side with them. I think woke culture for the most part sucks. I think that it should be allowed as long as it doesn't interfere in a mandatory type way. Like I said, libertarian in me is all about having whatever organization you want. You can be as woke as you want to be. But that stops once you violate the non-aggression principle. Once you violate someone else's life, liberty, or their property, at that point, I don't care what your social cause was. You have made your point mute, in my opinion. So I'm gonna keep it really simple on that. But you know that's how I stand on it. I still, like I said, I want all ideas to be introduced, even the worst of them, because history repeats itself when you try to suppress and censor things. You have to allow the best idea to beat the popular idea, even if it's completely opposite stance of you. But that's how I stand.
Connor?
Yeah, so I think bigotry
Nice.
for race and bigotry for like sexual orientation and gender identity is absolutely a historical thing. I think that being woke in some circumstances or being progressive in some stances can be good, but there's this philosophy of conservatism called Burkean conservatism. It's from Edmund Burke. He's one of like the founding philosophers of like conservatism in general. And basically what he's not a traditionalist. He doesn't hold on to things because we used to do them. It's what are the things we need to hold on in order to have a functioning society, and what are the things we need to let go or progress on in order to have a functioning society. And I think that any conservative who follows Edmund Burke should ask themselves those questions. When it comes to race issues or LGBTQ issues, I think ultimately we kind of need to teach a liberal or libertarian perspective in school And then we need to, if you have a cultural more that you think is appropriate, then you need to follow up with your communities and you need to promote your values to that community. And I think that's what we need to do. And unfortunately, it needs to be incremental. God damn. This was an interesting conversation. So I'll leave it there.
I also want to thank Your Movie Sucks for the raid. I really appreciate it. Now we're going to throw it over to Hake.
Oh, hey, Adam.
This marketplace of ideas stuff is a bad idea because you guys are trying to, I'm talking to my fellow conservative panelists. You guys are trying to get along with evil, and you give it an inch, it's going to take a mile. Evil will never stop. You'll find yourself accepting all kinds of insanity. There's no such thing as racial justice. When you put an adjective next to justice or rights or freedoms or whatever, it pretty much means that it's the opposite of it. It means that you're turning it on its head. You're turning real, actual justice on its head, and you see that playing out all the time. So they add adjectives to fool people. That's what communists do. They change the language and add stuff, and then the conservatives find themselves playing along with it. It's a really bad idea. White people right now, men right now, are afraid to tell the truth, to have their freedom of speech, and everybody else, all the other so-called oppressed minorities, are encouraged in their anger, which is the worst thing for them. This false sympathy for Black Americans and the LGBT people is the worst thing for them. It shows love to oppose the false ideas that they are victim.
Okay, now we're gonna throw it over to Lecture Fan.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think critical race theory needs to be banned in school, but I think that we should teach the truth in schools. And so when you go to teaching the truth in schools, that's a de facto ban on critical race theory since it's so false. Wokeism is definitely a religion of the left. That's why you see almost everybody that's woke, guess what? They don't believe in God. And you can tell by the way they talk that they're getting their spiritual and religious fulfillment from their woke beliefs. And that's also why you see them wanting to ban anything else. It's a religious extremism. They're religious extremists. They believe in shutting down anybody's speech that doesn't agree with them. They support censorship on social media. These are the mobs that get people fired from their job because they said something 10 years ago on Twitter that we just found. You see that all the time. And so it's pretty clear that's what it is. It's definitely a thing. I know that the left wants to try to run from that, just like they want to run from everything else. But wokeism is a very important topic. I mean, that's why you saw the Democrats just got destroyed in the elections 2 weeks ago. Democrats are getting ready to lose the House. They're going to lose the Senate. They're not learning the lesson. They should have learned their lesson from Virginia and literally hundreds of elections all across the country 2 weeks ago, and Joe Biden has been so stupid to turn over his agenda to the radical woke left, but he's done it. The wokeism is killing the Democrats. If they keep pushing this stuff, they're going to keep losing elections.
Okay.
I hope so.
Next, we're going to throw it over to Loner Box.
I'm glad you mentioned Edmund Burke counterpoints, because I think there was a while ago I read this thing called a traditionalist case for gay marriage, and you could argue that according to Burke, like the only way that a society can really preserve its traditions is to embrace change that's inevitable, and I think gay marriage and like a lot of LGBT stuff would come under that. I don't know, I'm quite happy to be living in like an insanely woke country with a very woke education system. I think I was giving a guitar lesson to a family friend who's only like 12 years old, and he came back from school one day and was talking about how he'd learned like all the different flags. He knows how to draw a trans flag, he can draw an LGBT flag, he can draw like an agender flag, a non-binary flag. It's he also thinks white supremacy is bad, so yeah, it's cool.
What a shame.
Yep. We're gonna throw it over to...
It's a shame that he thinks white supremacy is bad.
What a shame.
Doesn't exist.
Okay, well guys, during outros nobody else talks, so we can keep the show rolling.
What
Law
the
and order,
fuck?
okay.
What
Throw it
again,
over
man?
to Lumi.
Yeah, so interesting that lecture fan points out that there's a little bit of a problem with the Democrats and wokeism, which again, I wish you could define more clearly. It seems like just a collection of things you don't like about the Democrats, which, okay, if that's how you want to roll, that's how you want to roll. I do actually have criticisms of how both corporations and Democrats use these woke ideas that right-wingers would call woke. And I think there's interesting discussion discussion to be had, but unfortunately it's just Democrats are woke and you don't get much more depth than that. If you want to hear analysis on that, I want to be talking about that with the Virginia elections this weekend, so feel free to hit me up.
Throwing it over to Riley.
Yeah, so the problem that we talked about originally ended up kind of coming through. So like the problem is that like the term woke is really vague in terms of how it's used. We asked for a specific example. We eventually got to CRT. We asked for examples about how CRT was like negatively affecting people or what exactly they were talking about. Someone gave an example. We looked at that example. All that the example was talking about the existence of racism and the fact that one parent complained about it. And I would say that teaching about racism in our schools is a good thing because clearly there are some people, even on this panel, who say it just does not exist. No one can do a racism, or even if you can, it's bad. Or yeah, I don't know. I'm ready for the next topic.
Okay, and Vosh Vidya, otherwise known as Irish Laddie, otherwise known as badvideogamestakes.com. Continue.
Oh, you'll get yours, Dylan.
By the way, your mic is like kind of like growly.
Growly. Do I sound it? Hello?
You hear
Clipping,
the
growly.
yeah clipping. Yeah, that's
Heavy on the bass.
Interesting. I don't
Altså,
think
det
I've changed
er
anything.
sådan,
Is this fine?
You can
Grøn,
do the outro
rød.
like this, but see if you can fix it between this and the next topic. I'll give you
Let me
last.
just. Okay. We should be specific with the terms we use, because that means we can better isolate the things we have an issue with. And I feel like conservatives often dishonestly refrain from specificity because it allows them to condemn things that they know wouldn't go well optically without directly naming them. Let me leave the Discord call and you can bring me back in.
Okay. Now we're gonna go to the last topic of the night, which is the death penalty. Now, I want to say quickly for everybody watching at home that it takes a lot of time to put this show on for all of you. You know, it takes effort organizing. So any donations, any subs, or anything like that would be greatly appreciated to keep this show running. Thank you very much. And also be sure to check out everybody here's links and stuff, which they will shout out at the end. So now we will go into the last topic, which is the death penalty. Do you or do you not support the death penalty, corporal punishment, however you want to put it? Anyway, we're going to start in the top. Actually, no, we're going to start with Riley. Riley hasn't started us off before, so I'm going to do Riley.
Oh my God, thank you. All right, then. I think that my argument's going to be like relatively simple. I think that we have to be very careful when we're talking about something like capital punishment.
Don't change.
Death penalty,
Thank you.
because that is one type of punishment that is unique to our criminal justice system, is that you cannot undo it if you find out later that you made a mistake. With that being said, since we do not have a criminal justice system which is able to perfectly determine who has or who has not committed a crime, we have appeal systems for a reason, then it probably would make the most sense to not allow that to be something that can be done at all, since we cannot undo it in the event of a mistake. We observe that this happens a lot. We often have mistakes where it turns out that, oh, we sentenced someone to death, and later it turns out that they didn't actually commit a crime. We probably want to prevent that from happening as much as possible. Yeah.
Okay, next is going to be Lumiru.
All right, so I often see kind of two arguments around here. There's a moral one based kind of oftentimes heavily based on feelings, not all the time. That's like, should we kill someone that does this awful, awful thing? Whether or not you agree with me on that, which I would say, generally speaking, no. I don't think that the state should have the power to do this. And that's where my argument would hinge, is I don't think this is a power that the state should have. There are too many mistakes. As Riley said, you can't unkill a person. And we've already seen, I think it's since 1970 something, we've had 130 something innocents killed on death row that we know of. So that's concerning to me. I know people will get into the cost discussion as well, which I think can be kind of interesting. I'm curious as to why it turns out that the death penalty is so costly and doesn't save money, but that's something I'll be.
Because it needs to be as hard as possible for the state to do. It needs to not be a likely thing.
Big no for me.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move it over to
That's
Vosh
a
video.
easy one. Sindssygt, hun ikke ved det i forvejen.
I'm very much against the death penalty for reasons that are basically a criticism of our system as a whole. I think that, like, with the way our system in America is right now, which is so punitive and so obsessed with, like, retributive justice, I think that we should not only have executions, we should have them publicly. Like, that would be the consistent application of our justice system. But of course, that's not really what we should be doing, right? We should be interested in rehabilitation. And execution is the ultimate failure of rehabilitation. You literally cannot rehabilitate a person after they've been killed. It's not
Boss, fix your
Logistically,
fucking mic.
the death penalty is indefensible because it costs more than lifetime imprisonment. So there's just no argument to be made there. You should never do it. There's no mathematical, pragmatic reason you could ever really justify its implementation outside of, I think this person is so bad that they should just die. And I just don't think the state should have the right to do that. I also don't think the state should really have the right to imprison a person for life either. The difference being that when you imprison a person for life, they keep giving you indicators as to whether or not they should be in there. If a person kills somebody and they're in prison for 10 years, well, you can look at them. Are they going to kill someone again? There are ways to tell. Not perfectly, but you can get a feel for it. If a person's dead, you never get that choice. In short, executions are a complete deviation from the reform-based and criminal justice system that we should have. There's no argument in their favor.
Now, I gotta say, you just proved that communists are liars because your mic got even worse somehow. So, I don't know. I'll give you.
With the
Don't
rest
worry.
of your things. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Left wing destroyed.
Throw it over to Loner Box.
Yeah, death penalty is really fucking stupid. It kind of fails at like just about everything most of its proponents say that it achieves, apart from the fact that some criminals get killed, with the collateral being some non-criminals get killed, or some people who weren't guilty get killed. So I don't know. I think the only real argument against it is that against the death penalty is that that's not what the criminal justice system is supposed to do. It's not supposed to be about retribution. The point of a criminal justice system is to reduce the social harms done by crime, and the best way to do that is through that we know of so far is rehabilitation. So you either keep someone in jail until they're rehabilitated, or they die in jail. It seems to be the best system.
Okay, now we move on to conservatives, and we will start off with Lecture Fan for the last topic of the night.
Okay, first of all, one of the reasons for the justice system is absolutely punishment. But actually, Dylan, you said you were going to wait until the end to shout us out. I'm shouting myself out now because I know there's some people here that won't be here at the end. I'm Lecture Fan. It's LCTR Fan. Every single social media platform, spelled the same way, LCTRFAN. Lots of people have actually come to Jesus Christ from seeing me on these panels and then coming to my stream and then watching my Wednesday night Bible studies. So that's one of the reasons I still come on here. If you guys want to come check out the Wednesday night Bible studies, do it. So here's the thing about the death penalty, though. This is one I'm genuinely go back and forth on. I'm genuinely torn on this, and I'm not one to waffle on issues or say I see both sides of it, or I never, ever, ever do that. But this one I do. I mean, religiously, my religious views suggest that I don't agree with it because I believe in forgiveness and, redemption and all these different things like that. But on the other hand, sort of another side of me is like, I actually don't see really a lot of things wrong with the death penalty for certain people after they've done certain crimes. I mean, I'm certainly in favor of extremely long-term prison sentences for lots of different crimes, including like rape and child pornography. I find it really disturbing that a lot of leftists don't actually support long-term prison sentences for rapists. That's a different question. But here's the thing. If I was actually like elected to political office, I would not spend my time trying to get rid of the death penalty. It would never be an issue where it's like I'm fighting so hard to get rid of the death penalty. I just wouldn't do that. And I don't spend my time doing that. But if it was up to me and I had to make a decision, I'd probably say I'm not in favor of it for religious reasons. But again, I'm not going to be the one that really fights hard against it, because I totally understand why we have it, and it's been something that humans and governments and America has done for forever. So I also find it a little bit presumptuous. This is something leftists love to do, is they think here in 2021 we're the only humans that have ever got something right, and that humans for 5,000 years have been wrong on something. I'm a little bit reluctant to do that on that issue, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I'm against it in a lot of ways. So yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to throw it over to the Hake report.
Thank you. Yes, we should have the death penalty, but we definitely need to improve the justice system. Justice should be swift, and justice should be no doubt with regard to a person's guilt. We should do it for things like murder, legitimate rape, no matter who's
What a
whether
brave
it's a woman
take.
raping a man or a boy, or a male raping a female. Robbery in the case where you're robbing somebody's livelihood. In the olden days, if you stole a family's cow, and we're coming back to at desperate times like this, that could mean death for that family, because people would. That's why I think that's why there were lynchings in some cases for that stuff. But I, of course, believe in due process. Vosh mentioned public executions. I mean, it reminds me of what conservatives say about Ashley Babbitt, where they say she was executed. Technically, she was. I don't think she was executed, but it would be nice if we had consistency with like a heavy hand on rioters. If we had that heavy hand on rioters consistently, then they wouldn't be so quick to do that. Same thing with the death penalty. If we had swift justice, not 20, 30, 40 years later, them finally getting executed, maybe, and endless appeals processes. There needs to be, if there's no doubt, and it's an egregious crime like a murder or maybe like a legitimate rape or series of them, then it should be, we need somehow to return to not relying on lying lawyers and corrupt judges and feel sorry for people's stuff, and return to like men of logic and a firm hand.
Men of logic.
Then I think it does make people think twice. We should abolish, though, hate crime legislation, because the hate crimes are often, that's why Dylan Roof, it's politically motivated that they're getting Dylan Roof for a
unrelated.
Death penalty.
Sorry, continue.
Okay, but it's a death penalty. That's not because, anyway, it's related.
No. I said it's unrelated to me because people hear Dylan Roof and no. Continue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were saying my argument was unrelated. Loretta Lynch, Obama Attorney General, she went after Dylan Roof because he's so-called racist, not because he murdered. He's not getting the death penalty because he murdered, but because it was a so-called racist murder. You're getting rid of when somebody does a hate crime. Oh, getting into hate crimes, but it's violating the First Amendment, and it's these anti-discrimination laws. When they become the feds get involved. The feds are the most corrupt police department in the country, but they're going after the local cops. It's so backwards. They're destroying basic freedoms. So there is a lot of corruption in the justice system, but we do need the death penalty, I think.
Okay. Next is going to be Connor.
Nice. All right. So at this point, I've had this fucking debate so many goddamn times. I just want to abolish the death penalty so we can stop fucking talking about it. But if we can't do that, I actually do, on a moral principle basis, I think we should retain the right to impose the death penalty. I think that we should up the evidentiary standard to beyond a shadow of a doubt. Whenever I have this debate, people often act like this is some kind of impossible standard that we couldn't possibly understand the definition of it. And I've explained it multiple times. I feel like people are being willfully obtuse whenever I do explain it. Kyle Rittenhouse is the perfect example. Not that it wasn't a self-defense case, but there's video evidence of the person perpetrating the crime. There's multiple witnesses. There's a confession. There's physical evidence. There's, cell phone footage. There's corroborative witnesses. There's all this shit that stacks up to this motherfucker who did it. Same thing with Dashkar Sarnaev, particularly. He planned it. He had digital stuff. He, planned it with his brother. They have digital records. They have forensic records. They have a confession. He doesn't feel bad for the crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are these evidence standards that you could meet where if you exceeded that threshold, you would not be killing the wrong person. So moving from beyond a reasonable doubt to beyond a shadow of a doubt in death penalty cases, if you don't exceed that standard, then they just get, life with, no parole or whatever. I also think that we should up the standard of the crimes that death penalty cases are specifically applied for. I would reserve them for heinous crimes, particularly infanticide, serial killing, mass shooting, and terrorism. I think that in order for the state to put you down, kind of similarly to someone would euthanize a dog that had caused damage, the crime itself has to be particularly grievous. And then just to save some research time for Lumiru, part of the reason why the death penalty is so expensive in the United States is because of administrative costs for appeals. If you had a court case that was beyond a shadow of a doubt provable, you could probably cut down on the processing time, and as a result, the time. You know, and for all those, like, we need specific chemicals in order to euthanize people. No, we don't. Let's just get a shitload of fucking heroin and fucking give people heroin. I don't care if they have a good way out or a bad way out. Fucking just get them the fuck out of here. So I'll leave it there. Yield.
Okay, and for the final intro, it's going to go to Brant.
Yeah, 2 quick points, objective and subjective. Objective, I would never argue what another state chooses through voting with their constituency and what their legislatures adopt as what are, you know, imposable crimes or you know, something that is punishable by death. Subjectively speaking, I would not vote in favor of a death penalty. And if I was sitting on a jury, I probably could not cast that vote. So that's just the long and short of it. I'm very, very held to my libertarian beliefs, and I would, like
maybe I
said,
should have
never
waited.
impose on a community that has nothing to do with
Yeah, I
me
should have.
and what their laws
I'm
are and
learning.
how they're written and interpreted.
Okay, now it is open dialogue. Looks like Riley wants to start us off. So, okay, Riley.
Cool. All right, so I'm gonna ask
The
a
other
question
thing that was sort of
now, Connor. You might be able to answer this question. I just want to see what Hake says because I'm super curious about what he's gonna say. So can I ask him this question and then like have you refrain for a second just to see what he says? Cool. Hey, so you said that you want the death penalty, but you want to make sure that we have it in cases where we can be absolutely sure that someone has committed a crime. That's what you said, right?
Yep.
Cool. How do we do that?
How do we make sure that the person is absolutely the person
Oh,
who
wait.
committed the crime?
No, Connor, I was asking I want Hake to answer that question. Because I think you might, but like I want to hear what Hake, because Hake seemed very confident that you can be able to absolutely determine when someone has committed a crime. So I want to see what he had in his mind when he was saying that.
I was nodding my head in total agreement when he said beyond a shadow of a doubt. I haven't thought through like how you deter the ins and outs of how you determine that there's absolutely no doubt. But when I think of examples, he mentioned some of the examples, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev and that guy who shot up the Batman theater shooting. That guy is still alive today. He should be gone long ago.
Okay,
And
but like, what rules
that's an example of. I just told you I don't know. I haven't thought that through, but I don't know what you want from me. But those are two cases where it's quite clear.
Well, I mean, like, because my issue with having the death penalty is that when we cannot be absolutely sure that someone has committed a crime, then it seems incredibly risky since we cannot take this back as a punishment to issue it. Even in cases where we're like really, really sure, we have a lot of examples also where we were really, really sure, and then it turned out that we were wrong after. So I want to make sure that we don't have those cases where even when we're really, really sure, but still wrong, that we kill people. So I just want to know like what you would do to make sure that we do not kill innocent people, even when we're like pretty sure that they committed a crime, but we're actually wrong.
I have another question as well to add to that. Like, Hake, you said that you wanted justice to be both swift and beyond a shadow of a doubt. Well, the problem is if it's swift, then it's harder. It's much less likely to be beyond a shadow of a doubt. You mentioned Dylan Roof, actually. One of Dylan Roof's things was that he was appealing for a while because he tried to say he had schizophrenia when he did it. So that would have taken time. So I just wonder how justice can be both swift and without shadow of a doubt. Maybe you haven't thought that through?
We put logical men in charge, and we don't allow silly defenses like what you just mentioned, insanity defense. Insanity is not a defense. So you put men of logic back in charge.
Wait, you're a man of logic, right? Can you tell me what you would do? You're a man of logic, right? Tell me what you would do.
What do you mean? What would I do?
you said we need to put men in logic in charge so that we know how to avoid these kind of circumstances. You're a man of logic, so tell us what we should do.
Well, I will say a lot of these circumstances, there's a lot of claims that people have been innocent and they actually aren't. So we don't go along with people who are illogical, emotional, intellectual, because the law field has been filled with people who aren't about actual justice or truth. They're about sleazy, snaky, skirting the law and technicalities and stuff.
Yeah, but she asked you what would a man of logic do, and you just said we should not be illogical.
Right.
Is that all you're offering? That we get swift and we get swift justice beyond a shadow of a doubt. But you're the logical one. You tell us what's the difference?
That's
How do
funny.
you make it more logical?
You don't allow these appeals processes because these appeals processes aren't about a doubt on the case. Sometimes the case is quite clear, no matter how long or short you take with it, the case is clear.
Wait, do you know what appeals are
You're just
for?
trying to undercut plain truth.
Well, yeah, appeals are about making sure that you don't make a mistake at the trial level. That's what they're for. They're to make sure we don't make a mistake. So why are they bad?
Have you seen some of the ridiculous, endless appeals? Appeal of insanity and all that stuff?
You can only appeal like twice or three times. You can appeal to the circuit court level and then to the state Supreme Court and maybe the Supreme Court.
And they drag on. And people are on death row for years and years.
To make sure they did time.
It's not to make sure that that we don't make a mistake. It's to feel sorry for them. Loner Box just gave an example of Dylan Roof saying, "Oh, I was insane."
Well, it's just because you brought up Dylan Roof.
Can we just call him Mr. Roof? Can we do that, Mr. Roof, from now on?
But people have been exonerated after years of being on death row, though. That's why it's there. It's because sometimes it takes years for the proper evidence to surface and for that to be switched over. So how would you avoid that happening if you wanted justice to be swift? How would you know every time if you're...
When there's no doubt. When there's no doubt.
There's no doubt.
How do you make sure there's no doubt if you've gotten rid of the appeals?
I think we can probably move on.
Can I make a side statement really quick?
Undercut stuff when people know when somebody is guilty.
Yeah, on my subjective as well, I would add as a side note that a lot of what goes into my decision making outside of my own opinion is I really feel like for both parties in concern, even if the defendant is has no remorse at all, and the state maybe even it feels like their case is ironclad, right? You're talking about having a logical person that's in charge and clarity and transparency and swiftness and all that stuff. I really feel like the death penalty is an easy way out for both parties. I really feel like it is. It's a way for the state to just absolve themselves. Okay, we got rid of the bad guy. We did this, right? And it closes the door on like what some of the left have said in this chat, that eventually it's not going to be zero sum on getting it always right all the time. I feel like when we get to the egregious crimes, we put them in jail for life. We put them in programs, and every now and then, maybe every 5-10 years, we give them the ability to have the case looked at again. That gives a chance we stop repeat offenders, which is something that we haven't really talked about, and we also make sure that the door is slightly open, that if the person is innocent, we can make right in the situation. Maybe not fully in repairing, but reconciliation. And that's a side point I want to make sure I make clear.
A man of logic will wait and see. You saw a whole lot of emotional people forming a lynch.
Can I ask a question? A clarifying question, quick?
I mean, against Kyle Rittenhouse.
Quick clarifying question. You said a man of logic. Does it have to be a man?
Yes.
Okay.
It should be a man, I think.
Okay.
Because the emotional people will not, they will make a mistake. They'll cave to pressure. They can't handle the pressure. You see it all the time. There's nobody on this panel has any doubt about Dylan Roof, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, or the other guy that I think Counterpoints mentioned.
Yeah. Does sexism exist?
No.
Yeah, I figured. Okay. Connor point. I was curious. Are you taking when you go for that like without a shadow of doubt? Are you using multiple of those methods, like video? Yeah. Okay, because I think that my concern. Sorry, I'm echoing in someone, and it's.
I believe it takes.
Oh, okay. That may be. Because the video evidence is getting more and more easy to fabricate. And we know that confessions have been made under pressure, that they can also be, I don't know if I want to use the term fabricated, but coerced. And then I might be wrong on this, and I'm curious, you would probably know more, and maybe I have this information wrong, but I heard that it's the case that genetic information is actually more likely to be used to be proving the person innocent than guilty, but I may have that incorrect. Is that true?
Well, I was going to say, like, so basically what we're talking about is we're talking about a time and a technology shift within the past 50 years. Investigative and conviction measures have not been stagnant for the past 40 or 50 years. And realistically, what we've been able to achieve technologically is amazing as far as evidentiary standard. I think that, like, what you said is true. But chances are, because what it's true is we had those beyond a reasonable doubt cases where it wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt, and they used DNA evidence for specific things related to the case that were alleged to have occurred with the perpetrator, and then they used DNA in order to exonerate that person. So that person was the rapist, or they were the murderer, and they had the murder weapon, and they did the murder, but when they actually did the DNA swab of the murder weapon or the rape kit or anything like that, whatever DNA evidence they had, it ended up exonerating the person who was convicted of that crime. But this is not something that hasn't improved with time, and this is kind of like my frustration. I know I'm in a room with like super smart fucking people, but like my frustration is like there are these cases that like do exist. Dylan Roof is not contesting whether or not he committed the crime. He did the crime. He murdered like a dozen people in, you know, cold blood. And if he was captured by some like terroristic ideology and he's of sound mind, I think he should have the death penalty. Dashkar Sarnaev, same thing. I'm trying to think of other examples, but there's also like, I don't want to get too graphic because this is Twitch, but at the same time, like there are some serial killing and torture cases that would like make you lose your mind with how graphic they can be. And there's just some of those people that I would reserve this right for. I have set a super high bar, and I don't care that I'm on the losing side, by the way. 30 years from now, if I'm just a fucking old fogey with like outmoded ideas about criminal justice and you guys fucking win the goddamn culture war, fuck it. I don't give a shit. We won't put people to death anymore. But what I would say is that if we're going to maintain this institution, it should serve a purpose. And the criticisms that you bring up of the death penalty as it exists now are very real. We should not put somebody to death unless we 100% know it's them based off of multitudes of evidence. And we should only do it for the most of extreme crimes. And that's what I've narrowed my argument to. I don't defend the system as it exists right now.
Yeah. You could do that. I mean, you could do that relatively easily. You could simply pass a statute that says the death penalty is only applied if you have video evidence. You must have at least 5 eyewitnesses. He must have a confession. You must have all those things. Like you can easily just pass the statute. You could even do something that says you have to have 2 different jury trials and both juries have to be completely unanimous. I mean, you could go on and on with different like ways to do it.
Well, hold on. I think I understand what you're saying, Connor. The problem is that, like, as we're seeing more and more so nowadays, the evidence that we think is ironclad can also still have problems, right? Like for example, like deep fake videos are becoming better and better by the day, and there's a risk that like, oh well, we all treat like this kind of evidence as like ironclad. Well, I mean, like there's increasingly getting to be a higher chance. However large or small that chance is, there is a higher chance that even that could be fabricated, right? And there are like better pieces of evidence you can appeal to, but I am concerned about the idea of thinking that like, oh, there's some evidence that we know to be ironclad, because that was the same logic that we had back when we first discovered forensic evidence. And then we discovered later on a bunch of issues where we accidentally did sentence a bunch of people to death off of the evidence that we thought was super ironclad at the time, but then it came out later that there were issues, right? Like I want to make sure that we're not like repeating those same historical issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but wouldn't you agree with me that like forensics and technology and like even data forensics and all that kind of stuff is like it's a different world than 1985, right? Like I mean, I hope we could at least land there. And then of course it wouldn't be based off of like a solo factor. So if you had a video and that's all you had, and it was like a security cam that was given to you by a party who had a motive, you wouldn't use that as the only data point in order to secure a death penalty investigation. You would absolutely basically use like corroborative eyewitnesses and DNA and like all that kind of shit. And like, and by the way, the default goes to the in my hypothetical scenario, the default goes to the defendant. Like you said, you can't put somebody to death that you don't have 100% certainty that they're the ones who committed the crime, because then you don't have the chance to exonerate them in the future. So, you know, that's where if you were like, oh, well, we had one video, turns out it was digitally manipulated. Well, guess what? That motherfucker doesn't get put down, you know?
I mean, like, I understand the intuition, but even like, I don't know, like there's some pieces of evidence that you're talking about.
Before
Like, for example, like eyewitness
to have
testimony.
a critical
So this is something
strike
we're talking about, like things that law students are taught in like their first year of law school. One of the first things that we're taught in evidence is that eyewitness testimony is sometimes like the worst evidence.
Oh, it sucks.
Right? Because people like, as like an example, we don't have to like go through this, but like, you know, the example that like law professors will commonly use is on the first day to ask people to recall exactly what they had for lunch exactly 1 week ago from today. If you ask most people, they can probably at best like guesstimate based on their typical behaviors, and they're going to struggle to come up with very precise kinds of information. But this is what we ask people to do in the legal field all the time. Now, that's not usually the only type of evidence that we use in these kinds of cases, but like I just caution that we're appealing to this idea that like, oh yeah, there's this evidence that's like super ironclad and we know it's going to be the best, but we can't really say that until we know later on down the line when we discover problems, right? Like there are probably issues with the evidence we're currently relying on that we can't anticipate until later on when they're discovered, you know? Like if we knew them now, we wouldn't use it.
Sure. And like obviously the system always gets fucking dialed in, right? Like, you know, we always figure this shit out. So if we were talking about, and here's the thing, it's like, I know you're not being intentionally obtuse. It's other people in previous conversations who have been frustrating. To act like there aren't like examples of this is frustrating to me, because there are criminal examples of folks who have confessed to the crimes. We know that they did it. They're of sound mind. We have DNA evidence. We have digital forensics. We have eyewitness testimony. We have all of these things. So while it might be rare, that's actually kind of my point. I only want it to be applied in rare circumstance. I want it to be applied in these niche whatevers. And like, again, like I don't have like a massive stake if it doesn't seem like I'm getting fucking triggered, just because if y'all win, like fuck it, we just don't put people to death anymore. But I will be a little bit fucking pissy. This is actually one of the things that like kind of does make me want to hold on to this. It might be an emotional argument. But there was the Oslo bomber, the guy in Norway, Breivik or whatever. He killed like 100 fucking people, including teenagers. He basically walked around slaughtering them like cattle. He set off a bomb downtown as a distraction, rounded up what was the Democrats of fucking Norway and their fucking teenage kids, and walked around executing all of them. I think he killed like 110 people. He had the gall, after committing this heinous crime, because Norway does not have the death penalty, to say that it was poor conditions in the prison because all he had access to as far as video games is fucking PlayStation 2 console. Now, I don't know whether or not they gave him a fucking PS5, but I can guarantee you that if I was the fucking warden of that prison and Anders Breivik, the dude who indisputably murdered 110 people, including fucking teenagers, came to me bitching about his fucking video game system, I would have no problems taking him on a fucking camping trip to the fucking Everglades, right? So that's what I'm fucking saying, is there are absolutely cases that need like that where this would be practically applied from a legalistic standpoint.
Wait. To be clear, a better punishment would have just been giving him an Xbox. Okay, Loner, you go on.
Yeah.
Damn.
My question with that is that, like, okay, yeah, so I can quite easily concede then that there are plenty of examples where it is like in the moment, everyone knows, there's no doubt. But then the problem is, I wonder if you're like punishing according to the threshold of the crime or the threshold of provability. So what if you've got like one murder which is very clear cut, but it was like, you know, there's like a hot blooded murder with very low chance of recidivism, versus
Of course
a
not.
very big versus like a very big like torture and mass killing spree that's like got too much doubt surrounding it, and then that way like the person who did the crime that isn't as bad got the death penalty easier than the one who did a worse crime but was harder to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, so I think I specified in my opening that like in
Oh,
my
shit, we did
hypothetical scenario, I know this is super fucking niche, but like it was like infanticide, terrorism, mass shooting, torture, murder, and serial killing. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head that like would warrant capital punishment, and very specifically because it's the murder of somebody who's particularly innocent, it's the mass slaughter of people indiscriminately. It's the torturing is basically the disregard of the I don't know, the well-being, not just a hot-blooded murder, but basically intentionally inflicting harm in order to make somebody suffer before they leave this plane of existence. All of these things are very specific. Like I know that we get into whether or not like good or evil exists. To me, this is like maybe on an instinctive level, these are indisputably evil things that, regardless of mitigating circumstance, are just
Nice.
unforgivable on a social level. And that's why I would reserve the right for these particular crimes.
But even with that, I don't think that really gets around the question then, because then say if you've got like say a cold-blooded murder of an adult versus like the cold-blooded murder of two children, then but it's the amount of proof you have for the adult is much higher. So like the adult, it's the same problem in that the one who did the worst crime gets to live on death row for a lot longer because there's more doubt around their case, and then the person who's more obvious, even though the crime wasn't as bad. So I feel like it's like the punishment isn't proportionate to the crime, and I feel that isn't that supposed to be the point?
Sometimes life's not fair.
Yeah, there you go.
Why?
Default
like-
to the insured.
Why?
So that, but that's the
death
criminal
penalty.
justice system, like
Default to the
not
insured,
doing what
default
it's supposed to be
to the
doing.
It is doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait,
So benefit goes to the defendant.
Yeah, so like let me make a side point
I'm
here
not- it's
yet
just- it's just-
again.
I wonder
Can
what,
we-
sorry.
Can we all unilaterally agree that regardless of your political standing in a position of power where you would have control over the situation we're talking about, there exists no such thing as people that 100% like Hake, you said logic. You said we need somebody who's of logic, a man in charge to make these decisions that can do the. Can we all concede the fact that what you're talking about, even though you may want that to be, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it doesn't exist. People make mistakes. There are trip ups in the legal system all of the time. There are so many retrospective cases that there's so many that some get skimmed over and glossed over and never have enough time to actually be looked at until it's too late. So I just would like for us all to raise your hand if you agree that this perfect person, that regardless of political affiliation, that doesn't exist. That infrastructure will possibly never exist. We're humans. We're creatures of habit. We're implicitly biased. We omit things. We remember things the way we want to remember them. This is a tale as old as time. That's why I personally would vote subjectively to always keep the door open to look back and analyze cases. Maybe even if you have, let's say we've marked this person a deplorable, we've thrown them away, to go back and for psychiatric evaluations for future clients to be able to identify and maybe prevent future occurrences. There are so many things that we can do retrospectively. I can't agree that there's a perfect person that's going to get things right. Jesus was a man. He struggled with temptation.
I don't know what you're talking about. We have a man of
dude.
logic right here.
Oh,
Don't insult the man below you.
No, but no, I never argued
I'm
for a
having
single
fun.
person to be the fucking arbiter of the death penalty. I was arguing for a system that does not put people to death unless there's like absolute certainty about the person who committed the crime and the crime was particularly heinous. It's a much more restrictive
Is
system
this
than what we're talking about right now.
something
And
people
by the
want?
way, if it doesn't seem like I've said this before, if it doesn't seem like I'm fucking triggered, it's because literally it's like, I don't give a fuck if I lose this argument. I'm just telling you what I prefer.
Yeah, I wasn't coming after you, to be honest.
All right, well,
The mind of the intellectual or the emotional person, same thing, is illogical. That's why you saw people forming a lynch mob against Rittenhouse thinking he was guilty when it was clearly not.
Yeah, but then
And
why
that's why you
why
do-
do we do anything? Why do anything? Like people
Well,
are
I mean,
illogical.
just because somebody isn't put
Wait,
to
wait,
death,
wait, 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 Brent. Got him. He was talking. I'm going to give him the
Sorry,
floor.
he asked. I'm sorry, he asked me.
Everybody knows Dylan Roof shot up that church. And this is, you're feeling sorry for criminals, and I understand it. And you think that there's a way to rehabilitate them or whatever. But no, sometimes you punish it so that you know, so that life is clear cut. People aren't led by what's right within their heart. So they need the outside law to force them and scare them into scared straight.
There's no evidence that this is a good deterrent, though.
Oh
Like
no.
the death penalty
Hvem
is
ser
not
det?
evidence to suggest
Program
that this is
uironisk.
logical, man.
According to who?
Oh my god.
Lying.
According to logical men who wrote the studies.
Fucking liberals.
Logical men don't write studies. Liberals write studies.
I would do more to limit repeat offense. I would do more. I would introduce
Logical
legislation. Listen,
men don't
I'm
write
the guy who's
studies.
part of legislation, state X. I would introduce legislation that would try to limit repeat offenders rather than trying to work on the death penalty side of things. I think that when you're talking about crime begatting crime, a lot of states have taken very relaxed policies, open door policies in some areas of the world, including New York, where you can commit pretty heinous crimes that other states won't put up with, but you can just walk right through a door, and now you're doing it again and again and again, and maybe you have a psychological issue. Maybe this person has like
But we're talking about the death penalty, bud. We're not talking about like San Francisco repeat shoplifting shit. Like,
well, I'm talking about. There's a guy, an anecdote I can reference. Guy haunting the subway, basically on camera with his pants down, attempting to tackle a man and penetrate the person. It's caught on camera. The person's released from jail like that night. There's things like that.
New York and California suck. Where I'm not going to disagree with.
But what I'm saying is that to me is a stronger thing we can point to on causation of the festering of more egregious crimes. I'm not saying all the time. I'm just saying statistically, I've looked in the FBI statistics. We've gone over them with my stream, and a lot of these particular crimes are repeat offenses. Like I said, I would concede to the right stronger first-time penalties for taking life or using a gun in a crime and things as a deterrent before I would just go straight to death penalty.
Can I follow up on something that Connor said earlier?
Yeah.
Just to go back.
Sure, and then we need to look at wrapping up.
Okay, I just want to follow up on that, like, and I guess this also goes to like what Brant was talking about too, with like the really extreme examples, right? And I understand that, and I understand that there are going to be some instances where it's going to seem very clear that someone has done something egregious and that there's enough evidence to be able to issue something like the death penalty. The issue is that right now we're talking about designing rules for an entire system of criminal implementation, right? And ultimately, the people who are going to be making decisions about what does constitute an egregious, clear act and not one are going to be human beings, right? So I feel like when you bring in that element, that to me, regardless of sometimes we're going to have like the egregious examples that you are talking about, but when we leave it up to humans who are going to be susceptible to some degree of error to be able to make the differentiation between what is a clear example and what isn't, there's going to be some degree of error there. And we probably ought to prevent that from happening.
Whatever.
No,
Okay.
it's not whatever. Right? It's nuanced. I like it.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up now. I also want to say for everybody at home,
Whatever.
I got an announcement. We have officially, and I know it's the debate everyone said was impossible to make, Destiny versus actual Jake will be taking place on the 26th for the Hippie Dippy Championship. Two people who are not too friendly, but I'm very excited for that show on the 26th of this month. Now we're going to have everybody do outros. Again, I would appreciate any donos, any subs, anything that you could drop towards the channel to, again, support it and help us continue to making this program. We're going to start with outros. Not only will you give your final thoughts on the topic, but hopefully shout out your channel. A suggestion I give is that you spell out the name of your channel because some people can spell the things wrong and they'll never find you. Just a suggestion from me. We're going to start with Lumiru.
All right. Death penalty bad. I don't think the state should have the power to kill people. I understand that there may be niche cases that you have all the evidence stacked up in a way that you are very, very certain without a shadow of doubt, but I still worry that maybe something could be missing. So I just think it's best to not have it. The only perfect logical man is a dog. Let's be clear here. And if you appreciate dogs, feel free to swing by. Are we doing like our clothing, like shout out ourselves? Okay. I'm Lumiru. I use they, them pronouns. Talk about dudes. Talk about gender. Talk about all sorts of stuff. If you like talking about dudes, gender, all sorts of stuff, intersectional feminism, and how perfect dogs are, swing by my channel. I'd love to have you there. And thank you all so much for having me here.
Cats are better anyway. But Riley. Riley's muted? Nope.
Oh wait, can y'all hear me?
Now I can hear.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm gonna reiterate my argument from the beginning that, like, the problem that we have is that in our criminal justice system, we, even when we're using the best degree of evidence, can still often have room for error in determining the outcome of certain cases. That's why we have our appeal systems. I understand the arguments that, like, counter that